like a grease light.
What's up, everybody? It's your boy Flash from ALWT Gaming, aka Malachi36. We are having some really strange technical difficulties, so I'm going to try to do, because right now you guys see the screen and you see the two heads, and I see that Mr. illusBLive is joining us, which is why it's kind of loading in, but it's looking kind of weird because if I click out of this, oh no, it's still up there. That's weird. Okay, all right, so let's do this. Let's do this. Okay, you there, illusBLive? Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Just in the nick of time, man.
You know.
I'm going to turn you up a little bit inside the mic and everything like that. Go ahead and say something again for me.
Yo.
All right, cool. I'm not sure if you're planning on turn on your camera, but it's off right now if you are.
Yeah, I am.
Okay.
So I got a new setup, and it looks like a mess with this new setup because I'm in the basement.
Oh, gotcha. Yep. No, I feel it, man. I feel it.
So, this you guys will be laying eyes privy to what may potentially be at least the spot for a hot minute.
Okay. First and foremost, welcome to our Final Fantasy 16 spoiler cast discussion. Yes, man. I'm very, very, very excited to talk about this with none other. We had a fourth on here, but unfortunately has a family engagement. So, and he's still kind of going through the game. So this kind of works out because this is going to be no holds barred, full spoilers all the way through. Anything that we thought about the game, what we liked about it, what we didn't like, the ups, the downs, everything. And I finally have. It's been months since the game's been out, but I'm finally. What is that? Is that the Rock that does "It is time"? Oh no! That's the little. That's literally the what's it called? The little guy that always be announcing the boxers, the ring announcer. He's like, "Now it is time." But yeah, man, I'm so excited to talk about this game with you guys. But before we dive into all of that,
Just so you know, you're not getting to spin a Rooney out of me.
That's okay. That's Booker T anyway. But that's okay. But I as you guys know, again, I'm Malachi36, aka Flash, and you guys may have seen these gentlemen on the stream before. But just to kind of reintroduce yourselves, if you don't mind starting off silent.
My name is Silent Seraph, Silent Sforzando, depending on what medium that you know me on. Been gaming since I was real little, been in the tech industry for a long time, just really passionate about this kind of stuff. Recently, like in the last, let's say 5-10 years, just really had a new excitement for going back and playing all these old Final Fantasy games. Currently actually playing back through 1 and 2 again, so it's just wonderful.
Heard that. That's what's up. And now on over to you there, illusBLive. Tell us a little bit about yourself. Where can people find you at? What's going on in your life?
So what's up, everyone? I mean, you may have seen me, here and there. illusBLive. I am like the counterpart to the Final Fantasy love, generally speaking. I've been kind of everywhere on the gaming. So you can catch me on illusBLive on Twitch. I've been doing I've just kind of been a little bit of everywhere. But right now I've kind of been hardcore doing some roguelikes, and have also been brushing up a bit on my Final Fantasy roguelikes right now. Been kind of dabbling with Enter the Gungeon. And I am, I've gotten the first ending for Hades. I'm working on getting the official ending.
I heard that.
So that's been a jam. I didn't get the chance to run and go and get them, but I'm actually really interested. I'm about to do my reunion playthrough, and being, as I said, the avid Final Fantasy lover, I'm going to be going through on this.
Yes, sir. That's it.
As well as I'm going to be going through on the PS4, because I've been really interested in hearing the voice differences. I've gotten the chance to hear like the play-by-play, kind of back and forth, how each person, like how Zach sounds with each one. So it's I want to see like what differences kind of happen. You know, not only
Wonderful about that is you get to play all of those wonderful mini games twice.
So,
Dodging all them rockets.
You know what? I think the rockets ain't what's gonna actually make me mad. I think it's gonna be the level up system that makes me mad because of how random it is when it comes to Crisis Core. So like it's just like, because I want to say the first time that I went through Crisis Core, I got to the very last area, and things were able to one-shot me, but I was able to so what I would do is I'd hack slash dodge slash dodge, and I did that like the entire final dungeon.
So you literally just like kind of cheesed each enemy, dwindling them down. Yeah.
So I have
Souls
no
now,
idea.
boys.
Yeah. Yeah, I was about to say that's like the mantra for Final Fantasy players. Like, you'll get to an area to where you're super underleveled, and you're just like, I don't have the things that I need, but I feel like I might be able to take this on if I just do it like this.
Man, I'm there with you. I'm kind of playing a bunch of them side by side right now. My other playthrough that I'm a little frustrated with right now, just because of similar issues to that, but I'm playing through 12 again, and like running up into these Guardian Force fights Guardian Force. I'm an 8 lover. I love 8. This Esper fights that I'm maybe 15, 20, 30 levels underleveled for, and I'm just like, well, either I'm going to be able to mist cycle this guy, or I'm going to die really quick.
I mean, at least you're not limited like they had you with 13. I have no idea how many times I saw the cutscene like with Saz and Vanille when fighting Brynhilder. I have no idea how many times I saw that cutscene because of the level cap, and I'm just like, okay.
And it's like, don't worry, we have this autosave right before the cutscene starts, so you don't even have to worry about going and leveling up more. But I want to. No, you can't do that.
So I'm like, okay, let me just like farm all these guys who have these credits so I can level up like the equipment that I have to like maybe get a boost in health, or maybe get a little extra strength, because maybe I can chip just a little bit to get past that fight. Because Brynhilder was something else. Like, I thought Odin was like bad with Hope and Vanille. Nah, Brynhilder's an end all be all. Like, if you didn't do something right towards the beginning, like, you just need to play that chapter again or something. It's just
Hey, at least the music is fire. Let's be honest.
I'm not gonna lie. I had that soundtrack. That's one of the tracks that I listen to on repeat.
Absolutely.
One of the tracks I listen to on repeat.
13 would probably be a 6 to me, but with that soundtrack, it probably brings it up to an 8.
But that's why I love 13 too, because that soundtrack is.
And the gameplay is just infinitely better.
Because it's like 10-2.
Hey, what if we took Final Fantasy but made it Pokemon? Like, yes, please, give me more.
That's pretty close to the caveat of Kingdom Hearts Pokemon.
I love Dream Drop Distance. That was wonderful.
I will say like a little bit of I have a Final Fantasy story like little introduction for both of y'all, because when I first met Silent, I mean we met before all this and everything like that, but yep, I was about to get to that. But every single time we would play Final Fantasy 8, and I didn't have a memory card at the time, but I had a PS1. And but that did not stop me.
Excuse me, I am so sorry to interrupt. It was a PSX. The one is the white model.
Yeah,
we had the gray brick.
Yeah. So I had a PSX. Yes. So I had the initial PlayStation, and And I didn't have a memory card, but that did not stop me from playing it because I was just like, this game is awesome. I want to get further and everything like that. And my PSX was the one that you had to wrap a cord around it numerous times and flip it upside down just to get it to play the game.
I've told this story so many times to people, and they're like, "You are lying. You are lying." I'm like, "Nah."
Yeah, I don't. And the funny thing is, I don't know what gave me the idea to do that. I don't. But we did it, and it worked. It worked more times than not. So by the time that, because I think eventually when I got like a PS2 or something like that, I think I ended up giving that on over to Silent, and then he had to kind of do that same thing. Like he had to wrap the cord around twice.
It was all or nothing.
Yeah. So there was that, and then for Illis, I was actually, because again, same thing. I'd known you before I found out that you were a Final Fantasy fan. I was at your wedding. And in the background was playing a very orchestrate Final Fantasy X theme song, but it was like in a different way. It was a very like it was so beautifully done, and it took me a minute. Just like
because it was because I want to say it was Path of Repentance. I want to say it was Path of Repentance.
Whatever, it was so good, and I was just like, this is Final Fantasy X. And I came with the Illis is like, what do you know about this song? He's like, bro, this is Final Fantasy X. I was like, did we just become best friends? So that's a little bit of my life. Again,
so hold on, I'm a touch base on that too, because you were at my wedding, and I know you remember what my wife walked down the aisle to.
Mm-hmm.
So, man, so I didn't think at any point in time that Cameron would be one of the only people crying at my wedding, but my wife goes and finds this beautiful arrangement. She'd just been looking at like video game music, and she's like, I just want to see if I can find something. She found something, and it just like hit her, and I was like, she's like, this is beautiful. I've never heard this before, but it's amazing. So she comes and shows it to me, and it's this beautiful piano arrangement of Ami and Balam Garden from. And I'm like, yes, every time, yes, 1,000 times, yes. So Cameron comes up to me afterwards, and he's like, I want to tell you, that was beautiful.
At that moment, I knew you wanted to marry her again. I knew you did.
That is amazing.
It was wonderful.
Amazing. Yeah.
I was like wiping away tears when she showed it to me. I was like, babe, this is my favorite Final Fantasy, and she like, you could tell like the air kind of came out of her, because she was like, I thought I was going to show you this music, and here it is. You like already know it, and I was scared I scared her off of it. She's like, no, I still want to use it.
Yeah, no, it was just a very, and then like, and of course, like we played other Final Fantasies since then and everything like that. So before we fully dive inside the discussion, what's everyone's favorite Final Fantasy by far? I want to start with you, Illis.
Why? Okay.
Or it doesn't even have to be favorite. It could be what is the Final Fantasy that made you a Final Fantasy fan? Because I have two different. I can start it if you want to think about it a little bit more.
No. So I'm gonna go. So it's gonna be. We'll come at this from two different angles.
Mm-hmm.
So the game that really hooked me was between 7 and 10, and I say that because of how relatable the characters were.
Mm-hmm.
when it came to just like life and what we're dealing with and things of that nature. 7 because of its modernization, but 10 just because of people have you in these barriers and all of these barriers that can be broken. So the interpersonalities that you got the chance to kind of get with 10. But the 7, 8, and 9 run on PlayStation, and I can even say the anthology, which was 5 and 6. I think that, just like that run, was the thing that got me into it, because each game played differently.
Yeah.
And for it to be a series thing, 9 times out of 10, it's like, oh, well, here's this thing, and then you may have like this slight gimmick that like changes it. You know, like with Crash, the first one, all he can do is run and jump. The second one, he's finally able to like slide and crawl. The third one, now he's able to do like the superplex and have like the bazooka, you know. But like with this game, it's like literally each thing was different, and I mean, crap. I mean, and honestly, I guess I can say what actually brought me into Final Fantasy, and I'm gonna take you guys way back. Theoretically, it would be Secret of Mana and Final Fantasy Mystic Quest. Because Secret of Mana, the very first game, was called Final Fantasy Adventure, which is now Sword of Mana.
Mm.
And Final Fantasy Mystic Quest was the very first Final Fantasy game that my dad introduced me single player. And it's been Final Fantasy has been the game that followed me because he wanted me to know how to read.
Yeah.
And he's like, you're not going to progress. You won't progress unless you read.
Yep.
So Final Fantasy Mystic Quest, which is the American Final Fantasy 1.
Silent.
That is what's up.
Yeah.
Illis, if you want to pull your filter back just a tiny bit, you keep going out of focus really bad.
Okay.
Yeah, you might have to bring your camera a little closer to you or scoot closer if that's at all possible.
Can do.
But yeah, Silent. What about you? What is your favorite Final Fantasy or the Final Fantasy that made you?
So, we've been talking about it this whole time. You know that the Final Fantasy that like really got me hooked into it was 8.
Yeah.
Like that those opening scenes of running up and fighting Ifrit, and then the was it Dullet? Yeah, it was Dullet Tower, where it's just blazoned in my mind, sitting in my parents' living room. Your stupid PlayStation flipped over on its top, and just running from my life from the AX873 Spider.
Yeah.
And then that cutscene kicks in, a Quistis just like just taking it down. Like that was a pivotal moment. Yeah, he's got the Tom Cruise run going.
With the dive.
And then the machine guns know, and they're like, no, he got him, but no, it's your teacher, that happens to be younger than you for whatever reason. Anyways, 8 was so pivotal in getting me into it. I have so many favorites of Final Fantasy. 8 was absolutely the one that said, this is your game. This is what you're going to remember. But I think you hit the nail on the head with the anthology. 4, 5, and 6 were so incredibly pivotal in latching into the American culture and showing, hey, this isn't just some generic JRPG. You go from 4, where you have Cecil and Kane and the wonderful story arcs and all these, are they dead, are they not? You go into 5, and you've got Bart's and the crew there, and you've just got the wonderful leveling system that they have. And then 6, I cannot say enough good things about 6. 6 was a masterpiece that everybody overlooks because 7 came right after it.
And what game do you know that you can suplex a train?
Right. Did you know why? Because in the code, their code was so spaghetti coded that the only line in the code that said if the enemy could be suplexed or not was a line that said suplex, yes/no, and they forgot to say no on the train, and then they left it in because the players loved it. And you obviously couldn't patch it at that point, so like, well, we've already sent out 500 things. Yeah. Could you imagine if they did that, like patched all the rest of them, and you're like, do you have one of the copies where you could suplex the train? And you're like, what? No, I couldn't be able to do that.
Yeah, and that's one of the things is that back in the day, like we didn't have the internet that we can do those updates on, so you literally have to reset on discs. Yeah,
exactly. Honorable mention, I want to go with 12. I adore the storyline of 12. Balthier, Ash, frickin' the captain. Bosch. They're just some of the strongest characters in Final Fantasy history. Not a huge fan of Vaughn and Pinello, but they were thrown in kind of at the last second as the development team, where they were like, oh, we want to be able to connect with like the younger crowd, and all these people are like in their 20s and 30s. Let's throw in these two characters, which is unfortunately really noticeable because as the game progresses, Penelo and Vaughn just kind of fall off the back of the ship and they never get mentioned. But
especially for Vaughn being the main and being the connector, because when you start 12, you play as his brother.
You play as the brother. He comes up. He sees the betrayal of Bosch, which is actually Gabron's. Sorry, spoilers. But yeah, man, that storyline, and people have jokingly referred to it as like, yeah, it's just Final Fantasy Star Wars. Star Wars is freaking awesome.
Yeah.
I was gonna say for me, like the thing that I liked about 12 is 12 was the first kind of like dive into like the auto attack. You know, like I call 12. I like, even though like 11 was first, I call 12 the Final Fantasy MMO because because of the job system. Everyone can beat anything, but also the thing that to touch on for 12, I enjoy the world of 12 because
Ivalice is so wonderful.
Because of the touches that it's been to everywhere. Final Fantasy Tactics Advance, I loved it because of the touch that it did to you.
That's what's up.
The 12 was wonderful. If anybody of you have not gotten a chance to play 12, the remaster is incredible. They've launched it as the Age of the Zodiac variant, which actually was the Japanese version, but they thought that it was going to be too hard for American audience, so they just gave us the whole license board, which meant we could just break all of our characters. Now they're like, no, you actually have to pick what they can and can't equip. So it's pretty cool.
For me, and I'm pretty sure you guys have heard this story before, maybe even some people that's like watching right now or even later on stream. But for me, I have a favorite Final Fantasy. I have another favorite Final Fantasy, but I have a favorite Final Fantasy, and then I have one that got me into the series, which also is another favorite of mine. Like it's crazy. So the quick little story, the quick little story for me was that Final Fantasy interests me simply because of how it looked. I'm not even talking about the game. I'm talking about, at that time, I never played a game that was more than one disc. I was just like, I just want to see what this is about. Like, where it has 3 different discs, I want to see what this game is about, because that just interests me if it's going to have a story like that. And my buddy Michael, who unfortunately is no longer with us anymore, and this is the reason why I kind of got into it. He referred me to Final Fantasy VII. He's like, hey, try this out. I was like, all right, let me try that. This is my first turn-based game too, by the way. So I'm trying it out, and I'm just not sticking with it. Like 7 was just not a good start for me, and I was like, I think I only got like maybe about 45 minutes in. I was like, yeah, no, I'm calling it quits. About a year later, that's when 8 came out, and he was telling me about 8. He's just like, yo, like this game is so awesome. You gotta try this out. And I was like, I don't know about playing 8. I played 7. I don't even know how they got that high, but I'm not really feeling I'm not really feeling trying it. He's just like, because again, like in my mind at that time, which is probably what some fans think of right now, they're thinking Final Fantasy all the way up to 16s are sequels. Like you have to play the other 15 to get to 16. And then when he's told me, he's like, no, 8 has nothing to do with 7 at all. I was like, wait, what? How's that even possible? Like, just try 8. If you don't like it, I promise I'll never have you play another Final Fantasy again. I tried it, instantly loved 8. Even the opening cinematic where they're at the sea and that little that opera music is kind of coming in. Yeah, like I was just like, bro, like what is happening here? And then as Silent had mentioned, going to go fight Ifrit. And then you're also finding out that you have the GFs. And then when you pull out Shiva against Ifrit, he's like, they have Shiva? Like all this stuff. And then, you know what I mean? And then going to the test. The exam is what they sold me at. And then because at that time period, again, this is my first Final Fantasy ever, like to actually get to this point. So you get to the top and you're fighting I can't remember, it began with a G. It was like some sort of griffin vampire. Yeah, I can't remember his name.
It's an Elveret. It's an Elveret.
Oh, all right, yeah. So I was about to say, but so you're fighting that, but like that thing, that was the first thing that was like kicking my butt. And I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. Like, and I was at church when I was thinking about this game. I was at church, and then I claimed that God gave me the vision. They'd be like, oh, space out your GFs. Don't just have it on one person, which is what I did. I had them all on Squall at one point. And he's just like, oh, space them out on multiple people, and then start calling them out one at a time and stuff like that. Because when they do an ability on you while you have your GF getting ready to come out, it does damage to their health and not yours. So this is almost like a little armor. So I was just like,
you see what that is? You got to junction that Jesus.
Yeah, exactly. God, junction that Jesus. That's exactly it. So, but I liked 8 so much at that point and I heard that 7 was better, so I went back to play 7 and started 7. Still was, even though I liked 8, like loved 8 at this point, and I haven't even gotten close to beating it. I'm still like 45 minutes in. Went back to play 7, was not feeling it still kind of a little off to me. But I kept on powering through. And then it hit me. Then you go to prison while you're inside the Shinra building. You wake up the next day, your prison doors are open. You see the blood on the walls, the sword shillings, literally the trail of blood. I'm like, what the freak happened here? And then you go all the way to the top. The Shinra president is dead with a big katana in his back. And you're just like, what the heck? Because again, in my mind, like as a kid, like this Shinra building that's like 78 stories or whatever like that has hundreds and hundreds of soldiers in there. So you telling me one guy just came in there and just massacred everybody and then killed his president on his way out? So it's just like so. And then as I started getting more involved with Sephiroth, and then when you leave Midgard and then you start hearing the stories and you play with his power, and then you see that big old snake on the stake that was all Sephiroth. I was like, bro, this game is bad in a good way. I was like, this game is crazy.
It's like, not bad. It's like good bad, which is like the opposite anyway.
Yeah, exactly. So I was just like, so I would say, yeah, that was Once once I saw the snake, because again I tried to take on that snake. I was someone that was like, all right, let me go and try to take on this thing. I'm level like 18. The snake is level 25. And it's just tearing me up. I was like, all right, I can't outdo this thing. Let me get a chocobo, run across the river, we're good. Then you see that literally Sephiroth has shish kebab the snake on one of those trees. I'm just like, okay, this guy is probably one of the best villains in any story, like book, video game, anime. That's what I was thinking at that time. I was just like, bro, this villain is just too dirty, too bad. So yes, I would say again, kind of going back to the question I had initially, the game that got me into Final. And the last thing that solidified my place in Final Fantasy was 10. Yep, absolutely, it was 10 because again that was pushed at that point. The jump from PlayStation to PS2, that graphical difference was, and then on top of that, there was voice acting. Mm-hmm. And I was just like, bro, what is happening here? Like, this is... So when I played 10, and then, of course, 10 was probably the first game that I actually knew where people that didn't even like Final Fantasy picked it up just to play Blitzball.
Yep.
You know what I mean? So...
I was going to say, there was a time in my life when I was like, man, Cameron's going to come over. We're going to spend like 20 minutes of him talking to me about his Blitzball team, but then we'll get to start playing video games.
Facts, exactly.
I had a GameCube at the time. You were talking to me about Blitzball. I'm like, you're playing football underwater? I don't know what you're talking about, man. Mm-hmm. I couldn't Google it, you know.
Exactly, yeah.
This is coming from the same guy who told me like that there was a third evolution of Persian and he had 2 heads, and I was like, okay, you know.
Oh yeah, okay. Pokemon. Yeah.
I was gonna.
Like, what Guardian Force is that?
Just to caveat on 8. I was gonna say, I think like the 2 moments of 8 that stick with me the most is I want to say the second time you dive into Laguna. I want to say when I dove into the dream state, 8 got me. 8 got me with the dive into the dream state.
I mean, no, pulling us in with that man with the gold or man with the machine gun. That boop 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 boop.
And I think the other thing that got me with 8 was, after you get done doing that trial. You get done doing the test, you go back, and then it's you and Quintus, and she's like, "Hey, we're gonna go into the training ground. What we're gonna do is we're gonna look for this T-Rex." So it's like
Yeah.
you don't actually have to find the T-Rex when you go through, but it's like it's a thing that you can do. I found that T-Rex. So my cousin, he didn't have a memory card, but he had 8, and I had already passed that. I was going through the bush or the trees or whatever just before you go to fight Ifrit, and that T Rex was there.
Yeah.
So I was like, and I hadn't made the connection yet that the monsters level with you and me. So I'm like, man, I wonder how powerful this thing is. I wonder, I like, I know once you get to this point, it's a test. So let me test and see how long that I last with these guys here.
Oh no, they're rough. They're rough at that level.
That it took me 30 minutes. It took me 30 minutes, but I whooped that dinosaur.
Yeah, yeah, because
30 minutes.
there's a time period when I did go, and then we'll go on over to the main topic after this. But there's a time period where I did actually, I did come across that dinosaur, and in my mind, my GFs are OP that I could just call them out a couple of times. Dinosaur's dead. I had to call I had to call my GFs out so many times just to beat this thing, and then when I got older, I ended up looking up like how much health it actually had. It had like, I think it was like 16,000 health, which at the time was a lot compared to how much your GFs and your normal abilities do already. So, yeah, definitely, yeah. So again, I will say 8 is what made me a Final Fantasy, like introduced me to the world of Final Fantasy in general. 7 became my favorite, especially as they introduced Sephiroth, and then 10 just made me like, okay, pretty much anything that comes out with this game, like this franchise, is going to interest me to some degree. Whether it's like on a high scale or even a medium scale or whatever, like it's going to be up there for me.
I think the second thing that I loved about 10, spoiler alert, is that I loved about 10 was that was also the very first Final Fantasy game that I played where the realization after you've gotten so far is that your main character died at the beginning of the game.
For 10? Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah.
Like literally, like Oren's like, this is your story, and then it's like you go into sin, you died at that moment. Once you went into sin, he died. So the fact that like those two characters, like the coolest dude around was Shades, who's wielding this huge sword like with ease, just.
Well, he's I was about to say he's been dead already. I mean, again, that's a story, but he's been dead even when he came back. I would say that me personally, I still would say that the Tidus death was still a interpretation because they do explain that again that he's a dream and all that stuff. Yeah. So like so that can be not either here or there, but regardless, he had to go back to a level of non-existence. Silent, you had something?
It's really dumb. I only know this because I looked it up recently, specifically because a buddy of mine was asking. He was playing through 8 for the first time. T-Rexar actually has 2,000 health plus 500 for every 5 levels that you've taken.
Oh my gosh! Oh snap! So,
bear in mind that at that point in the game, you're hitting for like 60 damage on a crit.
yeah, exactly. That's crazy.
But yeah, no. On the topic of Tidus, it was definitely one of the first games that I finished, and it just made me think, like, what? That's like, I'm supposed to feel good. I'm supposed to feel accomplished. And it was just like sitting there going, whoa.
Yep.
I need to go outside, like, just go ahead, Illis.
Well, no, because like you saying that, it makes me think, because it's just like, when I beat 10, I didn't feel good. Like, my heart hurt after I beat 10. And then me going through a second time, picking up on even more so all of just like the deeper meanings and the subtleties. Like, there was so much that was just based on discrimination. there was so much that was based, simply on judgment. You have Kamari who hangs with humans, and because he's just a smaller person than everybody else, than his own clan, he receives a whole bunch of hate, and that hate was so bad that he wanted to get rid of his horn. You have um, you have Yuna who hides that she's half of this
Albed.
horrible race, this horrible race, because they deal with technology, and doesn't even like really go outwardly out of her way to just like claim Riku to be her cousin, because of you know one of her protectors being so outwardly, unabashedly hateful over people who want to help the world, but they know how to do so by technology.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy to think back and realize that like Titus's primary mentor in Spira was this massive racist. Like you're like, oh, holy,
Yeah, you don't really.
It's just cool. It's just cool to just like take a step back, and then it's like through not only Titus, because Titus resembled his brother,
yeah.
but seeing the budding
Chapu?
relationship with Yuna.
Chapu.
Yeah, Chapu, yeah.
But seeing the budding relationship between him and Yuna uncovering that she was part ALWT, and already seeing how accepting Titus is, and how outlandish, I came from Xanarkand. He's like, oh, I kind of like this whack job, but like he's talking about this forbidden place, but he really likes the girl that's like a younger sister to me, so like it's okay, but she's actually, part of this horrible race that and related to her, but I mean, she's actually quite all right. She saved my neck a few times. You know what? Let's go ahead and take on this band of miscreants.
Yeah, yeah. It's very because.
Go ahead.
I was about to say I will touch up on a couple things. One that you said on there is that like when you got done with the game, I called that the Final Fantasy effect because I had that with 8, 7, and 10. I had it all, but now on 10,
16.
Yeah, we're gonna talk about that in 16. Yeah, you have that in 16, but it's just like in 10 though, it was more emphasized because it was a very emotional ending. I felt good because I completed it, but it was one of those like, dang, that's how it ends. And to think this game that I've been playing for 3 months, because again we didn't really have internet. You had game guides if you were able to afford one, and that was pretty much it. Everything else I had to figure out. But it's just like I spent 3 months on this game, and now it's
.com. Come on.
but yeah, I was about to say, yeah, you had that, and now it's over. So it just kind of left you with like a satisfaction, but also like a low key depression. So so kind of pinpointing on now on over to Final Fantasy 16. I know that Illis, like I know that you still haven't played it yet. And I know you're planning on going to get it when you get a PS5. But I do want to ask everyone, before the game release, where was everyone's hype level for Final Fantasy 16?
Are we talking before or after I played the demo?
Before the demo. No, give me both. Give me both.
So, demo-wise, I'd seen some of the graphics, I'd seen some of the stuff. I was pretty excited for it. It looked good. It looked like they were taking on some, like, of that medieval theme that I am way more in tune with something like that than the themes of, like, Final Fantasy 13, where it's like, hey, everything's super high-tech, but she still uses a sword for some reason,
Yeah, cyberpunk.
That cyberpunk with a sword thing, like, I get it's huge. I love like that medieval theme. I love anything that is a little more true to it, where anything that's tech related feels more almost alien. And that was the vibe I was getting from 16. So I was like, I'm gonna pick this up at some point. So absolutely, when they announced the demo, I jumped on it. And I was like, yeah, let's go and play this. Oh, good Lord, that was one of the greatest demos I've ever played in my life. As far as for building hype, as far as getting you involved in the characters, invested in the world, showing you the mechanics of the game without really... Oh my gosh. that was a masterclass in demos. I've never in my life played a demo that had me that hyped to get into something. I played some demos where afterwards I went, this was a really good demo because it leaves me wanting to play the next area, but I can tell that they're trying to do that. This one, I could tell that they're trying. I didn't care. I was just like, I'm getting this. I'm doing this.
Yeah.
We're going right now.
Yeah.
The themes. I want to talk about the soundtrack for a second.
Yes.
The OST soundtrack, there's a track called Away, and it's the track that plays whenever in the demo, Phoenix, it plays right off the bat of the game. Phoenix is in the apothecary fighting off Ifrit.
Yep.
And it plays again during a boss fight later that involves, we're going to do spoilers anyway, so during the Bahamut fight later, when Ifrit and Phoenix join forces together to fight him, that same theme plays, and every single time that theme played, I was like, let's freaking go, because it's the gentleman that I actually looked into it. The gentleman that Nobuo has been working with as his like understudy, as the person who's going to take over for him. He did all the music for not only this, but most of the music for Final Fantasy XIV as well. They went to him for 14 and they said, "Hey, we're going to need a lot of tracks. We need like 35 tracks for you." And he says, "Bet." And he goes and gives them 70.
Oh wow.
This man is an absolute monster. Like for Nobuo to handpick him out and say, this is going to be my prodigy, he's going to be the one that replaces me. It's tracks like Away that make me go, this is the guy who can follow up Liberare Fatalis, which is the intro that Fithos Perset. From Final Fantasy VIII. That's the kind of epic scale that I'm looking for when I hear Final Fantasy. Final Fantasy music is the heart of Final Fantasy. If it's not for the music, they're okay games. But the music, it's just,
One thing, and it's kind of going back to the music thing, and I did want to talk about my experiences too, as far as my expectations there. But the music, when they in the trailer. This is before the game even came out. In the trailer, when they were given the summons names in the music, like Ifrit, Garuda, whatever. Like I was like, bro, this is crazy. Like I was hyped at that point. Now kind of going back to this, kind of segued into what. So before the demo, even before the first trailer dropped, I was interested. I was excited because another Final Fantasy exists, and it's another title game. I get to try it. Then we started seeing more trailers, and I started kind of getting that thing where I was like, okay, now you guys, I'm getting to the point where I don't need to see it anymore. Just give me the game. You know what I mean? That's what I was getting. I was like, just give me the game. I don't really need to see it anymore. Like, they're not going to unsell me on it, but if I was on the fence, they could have unsold me on it. But
the movie trailer and going, well, now I don't got to watch that.
Yeah. So I was excited, but like, if I had to put on a scale of 1 to 10, I was probably at like a 7.5 roughly. The demo couldn't have come out at a more perfect time. A week and a half before the game dropped. I started playing the demo. I had a little reservations there because early stages I felt like all I'm going to be doing is just pressing squares. Is that what I'm going to be doing? That's not the case, first and foremost. Throwing that out there, that's not it. But I had a little reservation there, but I was involved with the story. I liked the abilities that they had in there. That was when I finished the demo, because the demo carries over to the main game. And when I finished the demo, that was I can confidently say that was the first time ever in my video game 30 plus years of living have I ever got emotional about a demo at the end of it. I was like, when I played I was already ready for the game to come out, but when that demo came out, I was like, you guys better have an early release. I better get this game tomorrow. Like, this game is going to shift. Like, I was so... Go ahead.
Before the demo, did you play the Final Fantasy mode demo?
No. Because at that point, like, I did want to go ahead and do it, but at the same time, I was like, I want some of the things to kind of be a surprise, because I think that was going to be... I was under the impression that was going to be further down the road. It actually wasn't that far down. Sense. But yeah.
No, it was like the first major fight that you had.
Exactly, yeah.
But it was that demo that sold me on the mechanics of it. I was like, oh, this is where we're going with these. This is going to be the depths of some of these combos, and it was insane seeing the amount of skill ceiling to be able to see a game like that and go, I could learn to do some crazy stuff with this system. It excited me on a mechanical level. Like, yeah, I was already sold on the storyline, but to be able to go, oh, all right, I can do some crazy combos with this and get those gears kind of turning in the same kind of way that like Dungeons and Dragons does, is into where you look at it and you're almost looking at it mathematically. It's so fun.
So because at that point I was already sold on the game. I was like, don't give me any more, just give me the game. I want the game now. So I was like, just give me that. But and then here I heard the conversation from you, and I think even Gravity, who was just like, yo, like the demo is great. The second part of the demo is like, it shows you that the combat elevates. And I took your guys' word for it. I was like, I'm not going to touch it.
Great.
Yep, I'm just going to, because they already got my money. They got my money. Yeah, I'm moving. I'm going. Oh, dude, man.
Yeah, no lie. Malachi got the call, or got the demo, played through the whole thing, immediately gets off the demo and calls me, and he's like, yo, did you play that demo? And I was like, excuse me, there's a demo? Like, that's how fast he blew through the demo. I didn't even know it existed yet. So he blows through it, calls me, and I'm like, I'll be right back. I'm going to go hit the download button. And I call him back like 2 hours later, like, bruh.
This demo is like, I might be coming from a little fanboyism on this, but it legitimately is.
We are all three on a Discord call talking about the story of a Final Fantasy. We are fanboying.
Yeah. But I mean, even amongst all like the other games, I really think that on a demo level, this honestly is the best demo I've ever played in my life. Like, I don't think that there's ever been a demo that I can think of that tops this. There's been demos that made me be like, yo, I'm actually going to pick up this game. There's been demos like that that sold me on it, because that's what the demo's for.
Yeah. I'll this will be a very quick one-off because it has nothing to do with our conversation. Go figure, that coming from me. But what ends up happening in the demo for Kingdoms of Amalur? Did you ever play that game?
I did, yeah.
Yeah. So Kingdoms of Amalur, you play through like the tutorial area, but which it probably takes about, I'm going to say 30, 45 minutes to get through the whole tutorial level. And it opens up into this open world, massive area. And it's like, okay, you can explore that whole area. Go. There's no time limit, no nothing. You can just go and play through. It was like 3 or 4 hours of gameplay that you were able to play through. And you're just like, geez, this is incredible. I'm going to go back and build another character. I'm trying, and it's like, before the game was even out, I had like 10 hours into the game because of all the different like workarounds with it. So I think from a gameplay perspective, that's probably the best demo I've ever played. But no, for an all-inclusive package, there's no doubting this is one of the best, if not the best, demos on the market that they've ever had.
Yeah. I was, and again, the timing of it just could not have been more perfect. If they did, now me personally, as a personal fan, I wish it was closer to the time period, so that way I didn't have to feel like I had to wait an eternity for the game. It was only a week and a half, but it felt like forever because I was just like, you guys gave me something so great, and you're gonna end it like this. like
Had it been like a month or something along those lines,
I
feel like hype would have died down, and then not as many people would have bought it.
Yeah.
For you and me, yes, absolutely. We're gonna no life it. We're gonna do it. They had to give people time to play it.
Yeah.
Who had lives?
Yeah, which and that's it. So yeah, I'm being selfish on that because I was just like, you guys gotta give it to me the 2 days before. like let me at least get a little bit of time. But yeah, no, they came out with it at a perfect time. And again, I know that you haven't played the demo there, Illis, but seeing the trailers and kind of hearing me and Silent talk a little bit about it, where is your hype level currently at for this game?
Oh yeah, no, my hype level is still extremely high. Like for me, when the trailer started first happening and I got the chance to see it, I was excited because of it taking a step back into medieval. If we're going mainline Final Fantasies, you had 10, which was futuristic-esque. You had 12 that had like a world that was like kind of like in the, I'd say, a perfect in between. you have 13 was futuristic, and then when you think of when you think of the universe that 13 was initially supposed to be, because if you think of what 13 is, theoretically 13 is 5 of the Final Fantasy games. It's 3, 13, 13-2, and Lightning Returns. It also theoretically is 15, as well as its what is it? The Type 0.
Mm.
Because Type 0 was a PSP release only in Japan that they remastered. And everyone who followed 15 forever knew that that initially was supposed to be Versus 13.
Yeah.
So knowing that, so like having that span of 5 games, all of it basically being futuristic, it was really really nice for it to take a dive back and go back into our like our fantasy roots again.
Yeah.
So I was already ultra hype about that. Hearing them say l'Cie piqued my interest because it was like, wow, like so many people hated 13, but you're still gonna run with that? Okay. So
When are we talking about mentioning l'Cie?
like one of the trailers that I watched, they had used the term l'Cie.
That's really interesting. I vaguely remember what you're talking about, but
Yeah.
now having played through the whole game, yeah, it's like never mentioned a single time.
Mm.
But for me, like when watching that trailer, hearing them say that, that was one of the things that like really like had me turned, because it was just like, oh wow, like for them to go back into 13, like I know that this is separate, but for them to be using these terms, and then like seeing how like what is it, the summons like are a part of the people,
And,
or
and
like
that
the people can turn into it.
so it's a very and that one I just want to touch on a little bit because the game itself is very Games of Thrones-ish, but if you're an anime watcher, it's also extremely Attack on Titan-ish. So you have these dominants that are bestowed inside certain individuals because they only live like, it's not like everyone has an Ifrit in them, everyone has a Titan in them. There's only one person that has Titan in. Now they will be passed on, but there's only one person that only has Titan in them, or a Garuda in them, or whatever.
If you don't mind, Kim, I want to actually take a step backwards from there.
Mm-hmm.
As far as their world is concerned, the icons, there only were 8 icons, and they were icons that went back. The icons is what they referred to as the summons.
Yeah, that we knew of, because there was the lost one.
Correct.
Yeah,
correct. Well, so the lost one is one of the ones that they knew of. Ifrit was the one that people, anyways.
Oh yeah.
So these icons have had dominance in the past. So like the dominant of Phoenix that we know is not the first dominant of Phoenix. There were other dominants of Phoenix. So these espers, these icons, they were almost like a deific status, because they were. It's almost like if they said, okay, I exist in this plane, you exist down here in this plane, and I'm going to pick this individual to be my dominant. And so then that's why they were viewed as special. But as the game progresses, you start to realize that in most cases it was not a good thing.
Yeah.
Illis, how much of the world building were you made aware of?
As far as me getting the chance to kind of dive into the world, it's really just what I've gotten the chance to see in the gameplay of the demo.
Okay.
And
so
and then like the trailers that I got the chance to see.
So very, very, very similar to the l'Cie in 13. Not everyone can use magic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And as a matter of fact, the magic users in 16 are viewed as less than. They're almost viewed as like subhumans. You are put on this earth to serve your masters, the true humans.
Which
And it
which was
was
which was like when it like when in that one specific trailer when they were using like that
Mhm.
C term, that's one of the things that like really like hit me because when it came to 13, anyone who was a listee was looked at as a monster because they were
yeah,
bringing
it
some
wasn't
kind of
even like less
enlightenment
than.
to
It was
you.
you're straight up evil.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the fact that that was brought into 16, I was like, ooh, wow, okay, that's really interesting that they're taking this term,
Mhm.
and that still continues. So
Yeah.
that
So
really piqued my interest in that.
what's crazy is now take the active bearers and then insert these one special dominants into them, and now that dominant is no longer, you're not a superhero, you're a slave with superpowers.
Yeah. So if you don't have powers, then you're looked at as like a normal human of society. If you have powers, you're being used as slaves and weapons and stuff like that. You're not treated with the equal treatment.
Mhm. I'm
So
gonna step I'm gonna step into that for a second, because through some side quests later on in the game, you realize the reason for that is because governments were trying to basically cover up the fact that bearers have a shelf life. The
Mm-hmm.
more a bearer uses, the more a bearer used their magic, their skill, it drew out of almost like their life force. And so after they used a certain amount enough, if you push them too hard, they just die.
Yeah.
They
Let's
turn to
turn to
stone
stone.
and
Yep.
die. So in order to not deal with that disturbing fact that if we continue to use these benefits, we're going to be killing people. Okay, so what if we define them as less than people?
Yeah.
We're going to define them as less than people because I still want to use those abilities. I still want to benefit from that, but I don't want it to affect my like conscience. So if I can disconnect and say that's not a person, that's just a thing that's meant to serve me, then I don't mind that I'm killing it because it doesn't matter.
Yeah. And I do want to touch base on this too as well because here's the thing. And first and foremost, full disclosure, this might piss off some people that's going to watch this.
Absolutely.
But this is the truth. There's no black people in the game. I like that. For what is in the game right now with the slavery, you can't touch on that. Like you can't have it. You know what I mean? You can't really touch on that. Make black people slaves because then the developers look racist. But then if you put black people over white people, then they still look racist. And on top of that, like again, like I don't think that every single game has to have every single race in there. You know what I mean? So like for that being said, and these are being made by Asian developers. They might not even have a whole lot of history with black culture. So if you don't know about it, don't include it. So I'm perfectly content with that. So there's other people that will complain like, oh, well the game is great, but I don't see anyone that represents me. I get what you're saying, but at the same time, do you really want to have black people be slaves in the game? Because that's what bears were.
Right.
You know, so
every single time one of those came up, that we're running into those hard topics, like all I could think at the time was like, and man, like this isn't like, yes, a lot of the quests were almost caricatures of the issues that we deal with in our world, but they were calling into attention some real world issues, and they were doing a really good job with it.
yeah. Yeah, so it's just one of those things that where again, like would I have liked to see some black people in the game? Yeah, I think that would have been fine, especially if they were to make it in a certain story. But again, like these are Asian developers that may not even have a history of black culture or anything like that, and then you're already having a world where slavery is heavy. It's not light; it is heavy in this world. So I'm
It was
fine.
heavy and accepted.
And accepted, yeah,
It was
there's
heavy and
justified.
accepted.
Yeah, it was just like one of those things where it's just like I get there's no black people in here and I'm perfectly content with that. I can hear
muted.
you.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
So, kind of to dial back only a little bit, the going on like the transformation factor, it makes me think of Vincent first.
Okay. Yeah.
And then
Talk about for the dominance, right? That transform into the icons and stuff.
yeah,
Okay.
makes me think of Vincent. And then when we go into that, I feel like that was a smart move, because what that makes me think of, it makes me think of Resident Evil 5, because the game was based in Africa, and the main character of 5 was Chris. And so the first thing to pop off is, man, what, this is white dude who's killing all the black people, blah 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 blah. And then it's like, if you didn't even go out of your way to take the time to read, it was like, well, the origin of the virus starts in Africa, and because of teachings, Africa being, the life of all things, we wanted it to come back to Africa as being, this is the reason why the virus was even a thing. But because of how people were spinning that, it's just, oh, it's a game about this white dude who's killing all these black people.
Yeah.
So because of that, that made them have to change a whole bunch of stuff within the game. So that's why, the AI for the second player is so like, because they quickly input this second player, to run around, so now it doesn't seem like as bad, and they had to rearrange stuff. And I feel like
That's why the co-op seems so half. Oh, I actually didn't know that. That's why the co-op is so awful, and it's just like, here, help me up this ladder.
Yeah.
That's literally why Five's AI and co-op is so bad. But then with that, that's why I feel like that was a smart move for 16, because you have 15 who I have a really like strong love-hate relationship for 15, because of, after all of the time that it took for it to come out,
It's bad.
the game to come out to be what it was, the ending not be its actual ending, for them to push out a lot of DLC, which was good to help buff the story, to then have their final piece of DLC be canceled, which was going to be the true ending. For me to have taken 11 years to get invested into these characters in a movie, in anime, in this game, through now paying for an extra $100 worth of DLC amongst 5 different chapters, for now the ending to be in a book. It doesn't I wasn't fulfilled. I was let down horrifically. And
15 was extremely anti-consumer, and it's for that reason, among others. I think I've maybe put 2 hours into 15. I adore Final Fantasy. I can't bring myself to care about these, just whitewashed characters that act like. If he's a prince, have him act like it. If his bodyguards are bodyguards, don't make him act like they're in detention. Like, the writing was lazy. The characters were boring to look at. I can't. I heard the game was beautiful. I heard the storyline got a lot better. Great. I personally don't have more than really that to say on a positive note for 15. The fact that I would have to go and purchase, even to this day, I cannot find a copy of the movie that I'd have to watch for under like $30.
Yeah.
For under like $30. And it's absurd that for me to understand a story of a game that I own, that I have to pay that so that I know the story. That's
and it hurts also because of the fact that, like, so you have all of that, And then you have Kingdom Hearts 3, which just gives you a drip, a taste, a divot of what Versus 13, what the storyline of 15 was actually supposed to be in a trailer for Toy Story. Because because the girl that gets taken away, that's Luna Freya. That's the original Stella. Yazura is Noctis. You see one of the characters who looks like the main bad guy, who's working alongside, and then you have the combination of
Arden.
Yeah, because he's wearing a hat in the Verm Rex trailer, and you got the guy who looks like the combination of GLaDOS and Ignis, in there too. But it's like that. These were like your original characters. This was like how the story. So to see how that minute trailer of what 13 versus 13 was supposed to be, and look at 15. Because I mean, like, I can still think to this day, seeing all the hype of versus 13, looking and seeing Noctis looking down at Lightning in her, in her suit of armor with the swords floating above her head. Like, I still see that, to know that that initially there might have been contention between the two, or because she was the warrior of light, and you see Noctis, and Noctis is dark. So to see that, versus 13 would have been, okay, you're playing as Noctis, and you're part of this side of time. To know what kind of story that could have been, and for it to fall flat. So, and so I mean,
on the topic of what the story could have been.
But that
was a weird game.
To kind of push it back on track, though, so like, I mean, me getting the chance to kind of like I was already like excited graphic wise for 16, especially having already like gotten the chance to do the Final Fantasy Origins, Final Fantasy Dark Souls. So I already knew the potentiality of like where the graphics were going to be. And then I was just really interested of how the gameplay was going to be, because of the stagger system now being really pivotal now for Final Fantasy.
Yeah.
And so to see what kind of new twist is going to be involved with the stagger bar or the stagger system, because as we've played Final Fantasy, each mode of playing has changed. So I know the stagger system's important. What's going to make this change gameplay wise for me to still understand the stagger? Because I mean, to be honest, I will be sad if the next if I play 16 and then I play 17 and 17 is like 16. You've already spoiled me with each game having some sort of different mechanic. I don't care if you highlight that this is a thing that's important. Please continue to interest me in your different stylings of how I'm going to be playing the game.
Yeah, I honestly kind of even want to say that for Rebirth, because we had 7 Remake, which had the stagger system, which kind of adopted it again from 13. Then you have 16, which kind of it's similar but it's different.
Because from what I understand, it's like Devil May Cry.
Yeah, it's exact. The same people that made Devil May Cry worked on this game. So it's just
it's not even that they worked on it. The team that makes Devil May Cry was in charge of the combat for 16.
Yeah,
like it's basically a Devil May Cry game.
Yeah, so I would like to see if we're able to get that combination of 16 and 7 Remake and Rebirth, which I feel like that's probably what they're doing. That's something that's going to be absolutely incredible. And
they touched on it with Intermission, to be able to see the two characters coming together for these like super moves.
Yep.
Like,
And you saw that in the trailer for Rebirth, on the latest trailer, where you see Yuffie and Red 13, they're doing some stuff together. And like, where she's like riding on, like, dude, yeah. So I'm very much looking forward to that. I do want to take the conversation to, and I feel like you would agree with me on this, but let me know if you have any disagreement on this. They're Silent, but I do want to talk about.
You're wrong.
Pros and I do want to talk about the pros and cons, but I want to start off with the cons because at least for me. Yeah. There's a lot more pros than there are cons. So I want to start. All right. So I have a couple cons with this. The number one, the first thing that I can think of that I did not like is that it took me forever and a day to get to a mount. Because some of these areas are pretty big. And in Final Fantasy, the number one mount that you usually have is a chocobo. But not only is it like you're going through almost half the game, which is not a short game. You're going through through half the game with like not a mount, but it's also behind a side quest. You don't even have to get Ambrosia. So it's just one of those things where it's just like, okay, if you don't do these side quests, yeah, it's supposed to say. Well, I mean, yeah, that could be.
I was gonna say you're spoiled because us being seven, us all three of us being seven boys.
Yeah.
You truly didn't get your chocobo until you worked for your gold chocobo.
No. Well, there's still some form of, because even when you left Midgar, you can actually get a chocobo just across the river. But then after that, you have a car, you have a plane, you have a boat. Like even the plane that crashes into a boat, you have a little submarine. Like there's still a means of transportation. To some degree, but even then,
even with that, like,
argument real quick,
you're still you're still like second disc until like you're confidently using those.
Silent, you had something?
Yeah, counter argument. You have quick travel.
Yeah, but I didn't like the.
Yes, I understand.
I don't want to break the immersion.
Thematically, absolutely, like to be able to go over to like the chocobo stable and grab a chocobo and just run over and have it run off. Like I think that could have been a good addition. But the zones in 16 are so much smaller than zones in previous games. I was excited when I finally got Ambrosia, when I got the chocobo. Because the world was as small, but also as alive as it was, it didn't feel like 14 where you're just trotting along to get from point A to point B and doing nothing. Now, granted, I was also in my first playthrough, I was like, oh, there's mobs over there. I'm going to kill them. Every single time I saw something. I'm playing through New Game Plus now, and I'm skipping most things. I'm probably going to be hurting later when I get to some boss fights because I'm going to be way under-leveled, but that's whatever. There are absolutely some cons in the game. I can absolutely accept not getting some sort of movement for certain areas, but for most areas it was you'd pick up a quest or something and be like, oh, I need to get over there. I've got a quick travel station that's like 40 yards away from that area. Let me just go ahead and use it.
Yeah.
Like, they had a transportation option. No, it wasn't a active transportation, but it absolutely was there if you really didn't want to walk across the area.
Yeah, but and again, like, it just came down, like, there's a point where I accepted that there wasn't going to be any mounts. So I was accepting that, and I was starting even kind of mentioning that. Like, I think I even texted you there where I was just like, I wish that there was a mount in this game. Like, just because some of the zones are big. Most of them, not really so much, but there's some zones that are big, and I don't want to just always, like, teleport from point A to point B, especially if I hadn't even gotten that flask or that little pillar yet. But, like, it was, like, almost like an hour after that, I ended up getting my mount. And I was like, wait, and it was behind a side quest. So I was just like, so not only is it halfway through the game.
They have a system where there's the basic side quests, and then there's this massive exclamation point on the side quests that are going to give you an unlock of some sort. So if you missed that side quest, I think that's on you. Like
it is. Yeah. It is. You are correct. You are correct. If you missed the side quest, it's on you. But it goes back to the other game, because I'm traditionally not a side quest person. I like the main storyline and then I'm done. This one, I wanted to do every little bit. I wanted to do the hunts. I wanted to do the side quests. I wanted to do the main quest. I wanted to make dishes. I don't even, you know what I mean? I wanted to do all sorts of stuff. But
he's not talking about the porcelain plates. He's talking about making dishes of food.
You know what I'm saying? Like, man, look, I was ready to cook.
Hey, I was ready for it all, man. I was all in. But the fact that you got that so late, and then also speaking, that's my other kind of tip point to a con. I like the pacing of the side quests until it got to the end. At the end, they gave you like
hard agree.
So many.
Hard agree. Oh my gosh. I think the worst part about that was the pacing, because they had this huge, massive set piece with this, amazing music playing in the background, and you're going and you're destroying the crystals and you're taking down eidolons and all this craziness is going on, and then you come back and they're like, "Can you make me a plate of food?" And you're like, "What is going on?" Mm-hmm. Like it just yanked all the juice out of your sails, all the wind out, and then you'd look at your map and be like, I have 12 side quests to do. And that was the like mindset you were in. It wasn't like, oh man, I got all these great side quests. It was, I have all of this to do, and then I can, I guess, push forward. But like my first playthrough, I didn't want to miss any of those, because honestly, some of the side quests were wonderful.
A lot of them were great, to be honest with you. Yeah.
If all of the side quests had that kind of level of wonderfulness to them, I don't think I would have cared. But toward the end of the game, like you said, there were so many that were just filler.
Yeah, I don't understand, because of the pacing of it, where you get like maybe 2 or 3 side quests here, then the main mission, 2 or 3 side quests here, main mission. That was like a good, at that point, I was at 60, 70 hours at that point of playing through the game, and I felt like the pacing was good for the side quest. And then right when you get to the last mission, before you go on to the very final one, because you had the option to go off and fight the boss. There were
12 quests.
And hunts. They throw hunts in there too. That at the end.
Oh, I will never complain about more hunts. Those were amazing.
No. I like that they threw hunts in there. I just don't know what they threw them at the end. Like, why didn't they just kind of? Because again, that could have gave me more. Like, because some of those, especially the one where you made the legendary weapon. I can't remember what it's called, but the one that the blacksmith doing a lot of his side quests, it will give you a legendary weapon.
Those were fun. Those are fun. I like the blacksmith ones.
I like that, but they could have done that even if they didn't want to make it too early. They could have brought that a little bit more forward. That's just an example of, like, again, like we're about to go fight Ultima, which happens to be the main boss of the thing. We're about to go ahead and fight Ultima. So how come all of a sudden now I'm going to be doing like finding this person's kitten or something like that? You know what I mean? Like, it just did not make sense for some of those side quests to be at the end of where they were. It was just a really weird pace. Sure. Which is what a con that I had. Another con that I had with the game was Titan's fight, and not in general. Like, Titan's fight was fun, but when you got to that second stage of Titan, that was way too long. That was really, really, really long.
Falling portion.
Yeah. Like, well, no. Well, I mean, that was also the entire thing was long. Like, because you went through like 5 or 6 different stages. Like, you fight Titan at first, like, go ahead.
No, I was just going to, dude, I think the second, so you had the first small fight with Titan, like with Kupka.
Yeah.
That was fine.
That was great,
The true Titan fight was split up into 3 phases. The first 2, I think, were wonderful. That third one of falling, I think his health bar could have been cut in half and it would have been fine. Mm-hmm. Yeah, but I think those first 2 phases were some of the most incredible cinematic moments in, like, that was basically an Asura's Wrath fight. That was ridiculous, and it was wonderful, and I enjoyed every second of it.
So now I do want to. Are you specifically talking about when he's like bigger than a mountain?
Yeah. So
that one I felt like was too long.
Well, then, so again, it's split up. So you're fighting him toe to toe. Then he takes a big bite out of the crystal. And he gets up, and he's basically in that, like, Sonic Unleashed form.
Yeah.
And you're going around, you're backflipping, and you're sidestepping. It's got that crazy, like, dubstep music playing. It's the most crazy moment probably in the whole game if it wasn't for the Bahamut fight. I think that was just incredible.
No,
the way that they used
there's 5 stages. Yeah, because you fight him when he's small, and then they break through the ground, and then you're still fighting him in that small stage, quote unquote. Then he takes a bite of the crystal. Then he gets giant. Or no. Then he turns a Titan. Then you fight him that way. Then he takes a bite of the crystal as Titan, turns into the big mountain Titan, and then you're doing all those dodging and stuff like that. And no, don't get me wrong. I liked it.
It's those moments that I kept playing this game because, like, whereas the normal game it'd be like, oh man, you got phase 1, like Dark Souls, you're like phase 1, that was really rough. Oh, he's got a phase 2. Oh man, that was a really hard fight. And about the time it gets here, it's almost like the Final Fantasy directors were going like, nah, we ain't done yet, and then it just like shoots off into the stratosphere, and it's the energy levels and everything. It just amazing.
I didn't mind that they had 5 stages. But when they got to the 4th and 5th one, the length of how long each stage was is where I was just like, that was long. Because I did like every single encounter with it. I liked all of it. But when I'm sitting
literally
here,
the only one that I had an issue with was the very last one because it seems like you're falling for
forever. Yeah. That one at that point, because like when you're falling, like at that point I was just like, oh, I think that's at that moment I was like, this has gone on for a very long time.
It was at that point I was playing it, and my buddy he's really good about not spoiling things. I was like streaming for him, and he was watching me play, and I just said the words, what are we falling through that it goes on for this time?
Yeah.
And he just started cracking up laughing because that was my exact same thought.
Yeah.
Because apparently, like, the whole time you're just so high up in the air that you're just falling through Titan's corpse that you had just split open.
Mm-hmm.
But then you're like fighting on the inside. It was really strange because then you're falling for like 8 minutes.
Yeah. So
like, I'm pretty sure we've reached temporal velocity at this point.
Yeah, it was absolutely ridiculous there. And then I have one more con, but I'm going to save it for the end because it's not really a con; it's just a wish that I had.
I have a con, and it's that so many of the main characters were so incredibly done, that they were amazing, that they were believable, that one of the main 3 characters just felt ignored, and that was Jill.
Jill's bae, man. That's why
she's amazing.
Right,
well, again,
she's absolutely
an amazing character.
Absolutely amazing.
She's supportive. She had all this stuff, but she had this backstory that was so dark and so she was in basically the same place that Clive was. Clive got dragged off to the Empire and was enslaved for that. She was literally made into a killing machine because she started expressing her dominant powers far earlier. So she
did you see the Japanese translation for that? Because it's actually even darker than the American translation. Yeah. So for you there, Ellis, she was in this. Again, I don't want to say she's part of this cult, but this cult had used her as like a shield to just literally be a killing machine, as Silent just said. But but they would sacrifice girls to whatever god they believed in or whatever. But in the Japanese translation, it was they raped the girls.
Yeah,
they literally
rituals.
Yeah, they defiled them beyond all measure, and then they sacrificed them. And Jill was just expected to just protect everyone, the cult members and stuff. So there's a reason why she hates this person so much.
So, but it's not just that. She was emotionally set up to be right on level with Clive as being a compatriot, but they devoted like 3 side quests to her, and they're like, all right, her story's done, now back to the main character. She had so much more to give to the storyline. She had so much more in her character that could have been tapped into, but they instead just wrote her off as a little, like, a side piece that happened to end up having romantic interests.
We may get more DLC concerning where she's from, because you find out about her and Torgal, because and this is a big spoiler, but Torgal, you end up finding out, is Fenrir. So
or rather, not necessarily is Fenrir, but is like the Fenrir like dominant.
Yeah. I was about to say it would be like a dominant in some sort because they're like that. Yeah, because Shiva is the is inside Jill, which is another spoiler, but you find that super early inside the game.
That's literally inside the demo.
Yeah.
Wait, no, it isn't.
No, it's not. It's really close though.
It's the first quest after the demo.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's exactly what it is. So, but yeah, and then there's like a lore in there to where Fenrir was always protecting the dominant of Shiva or something along the lines like that.
It was like it was a dominant-esque spirit that was also always around protecting Shiva.
Yeah. And at some point they explained it a little bit because like eventually, because for the longest time you're thinking that Torgal is Clive and Joshua's pet for the I mean they touch on it that Jill came with Torgal, but the way that it's kind of interacted is almost like Torgal is Joshua and Clive's pet, but then you find out later on that no, like Torgal's main objective really is Jill, but
the dominant of Shiva,
yeah, but like because of some sort of companionship that happened, his loyalty had expanded.
That was such a moment of what just happened. It was setting it up. Illis, they had set up the early game like it was going to be like super Game of Thrones, and so like you're constantly like, who's going to die, who's not? Is this going to be the part where we lose somebody else? And so Jill, who'd been like his friend, his companion growing up all the way up until they had the split up, and then he saved her, and they were both dominants together, and they were just setting this up that it was going to be this moment where he could absolutely lose her, and so tensions were running high, and there's all this stuff going on, and all through the game you've had this dire wolf companion, and that's been all he's been. And you're going up, and you're like, we've got to save Jill. So everybody's creeping up, and tensions are super high. And then suddenly your dog turns into a lightning beast and kills everyone. And you're just like,
yeah. At first, like when Torgal's running out there, it kind of even in some translations you might even think that Torgal's gonna die, but because he starts running out and then he transforms and jumps inside the air, electrocutes everybody. You're just like, Torgal just went Super Saiyan? Like what? Like what is happening here?
No, my jaw was on the floor in that moment because it went from being one of the most serious moments in the game, or potentially one of the most serious moments in the game, to suddenly, my only thought was, what? What? And then like, you go inside and you're like having this face-off with Kupka, and it's super tense and super like both of them are like super angry at the other one, but the whole time you're going, my dog just turned into a lightning bolt.
Yeah.
Like it was such a strange. I loved it, absolutely loved it. It came out of left field. One of the, I wouldn't even say better twists in the game, because there was absolutely no hints, even going back and playing through it on the second playthrough, there's nothing that even comes close to saying that that's the case.
Yeah. So, but yeah, as far as
Jill needs more stuff. Jill needs more stuff.
Yeah, I was about to say, yeah. So those are all the cons that I personally had. Aside from Jill just having lack of a background, what did you have any additional cons before we get into the pros?
Probably my biggest complaint with the entire game. They set up the world to be this on par with like Final Fantasy XII, political masterminds working against each other and all of this other craziness goings and intrigue between world leaders and they take them on as people who would help make recommendations for what they should do, and the power struggles between those, that there's this kingdom up here and this kingdom over here and all these others. So there's all these minds playing against one another. And so what starts off being a very, very intense political story, as the story progresses, it all just becomes, oh yeah, they were only doing that because Ultima was pulling the strings. Yeah, him too. Yep, them too. He was being deceived by Ultima. Yep, Ultima did that thing too. And everything, it's like all of the humanity, all of any sort of um, like justifiable action that was being made, because you had all these complex villains that all the complexity was just ripped out of them by this evil MacGuffin that came in and said, I want you to do this because evil thing. And yes, Ultima was a wonderful villain, but to rip all of that character out of the world for the sake of setting up your big bad, I thought was a really, really, really bad story choice. It was a choice, and they went that direction, and they did a good job with that direction. But for setting up the world as to being this living, breathing world, it just kind of yanked the carpet out from under it.
Gotcha. Yeah, no, I get what you're saying on that. I didn't really translate it that way. I can see again where like again majority of the negativity is just like, oh, you're just gonna tie it to Ultima. Okay, so there's that.
And it's like you had Kupka who was angry at you because
Benedicta.
Because of Benedicta, but the reason he was angry was not because of the death, it was because of the desecration of the chorus, which, by the way, was not us or Sid, it was Sleipnir, who was one of
Kupka's people.
Odin's names. Who's Odin?
Oh, you're talking about Barnabas.
Barnabas. So Barnabas had his knight, Sleipnir. Sleipnir was the one that had cut off, if you got into the lore, Sleipnir was the one that had cut off Benedicta's head and sent it to Kupka as a way of antagonizing him to come after us.
Yeah.
So literally just Ultima told Barnabas to tell Sleipnir to do this. So the entire reason we had Kupka as this a little more deep character was because Ultima was in the back pulling the strings. And it's just like, can we have one villain that we go up against that it isn't because the evil big bad is trying to mess with the world?
It's like they have you wanted some characters to have like their own motivation.
Yeah, their own ambitions, their own everything else. But then it just, yeah, like because I love characters that feel more human. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, because like you describing that, like it makes me think of Seven's universe of evils. You know, like Shinra truly literally had his own way of, you know, his true evil. You had Rufus, who wasn't necessarily trying to follow in the steps of his dad, but trying to rectify those actions of his dad, but he had to slowly reel those in. And unfortunately, with him slowly dealing that still means he had to do with Shady. So his subordinates, being the Turks, had, you know, their little things to do. But then even with that, you have Sephiroth, who has his own motivation because, you know, I'm not who they said that I am. So what my actual true purpose is destroying this. But then you dial back to the creator of Sephiroth being Hojo, and Hojo's just like, I want to create things. You know, so it's like I can completely understand. Okay, well, you know, the complexities of each person is like they may have their strings that connect them, but it's not necessarily this one giant string that's pulling them all together.
Yeah. Well, and I think the reason why I personally did not mind that is because it was an entity. It wasn't just a super villain, superhero. This was someone that is classified as a god, and like again, if he wanted certain things manipulated, I can see that. Like even when it came down to now, granted, I can't remember if Clive's mom is what they're trying to say was manipulated by him the whole time. Because again, at the time, she didn't even have the half brother, if you will. She was just kind of a dick from the start. To be honest with you, I did not like her. But
that's true. I think she was the only like legitimate villain. No, he's 100% right. So she sets up this like whole way of like turning against the country because this country was coming up against our like little country, and she could foresee that we were going to lose, so she helps them overthrow us so that she has ties to that. Her entire
The bloodline. She wanted to preserve the bloodline the whole time.
Her entire outlook was the only way for her to keep pushing forward, to keep living, to keep thriving, was to provide a bloodline to a royal family, to provide a powerful bloodline. And she did it well. But after they killed her off, it was just like... again, I loved the story. I could have loved it more. 12, that is the reason I love it so much. Yes, there are espers. Yes, there are things that are larger than life. But at the end of the day, every single decision in that game came down to either like corrupt politicians or people who had just grander ambitions and wanted to basically do anything to see those things happen. They were believable people who had fallen from grace and then were now trying to rectify this by doing all these other atrocities. They were villains that you're not necessarily agreeing with them or not agreeing with them even at all, but you can follow the mental process of them being there. Whereas the big villain in 16, it was, we wanted to live, so we made you so we could kill you so we could live.
Like, yeah, I understand. There's more context to that.
Absolutely.
I mean, even going by it being that simplistic. I mean, when you think of usually like those super entities, it's like, I want more power. You know, like, I mean, it makes me think of Final Fantasy 1's Garland. Like, that was chaos. And it was like, he had the power. Like, you killed him at a weakened state. You had to go back in the past in order for you to actually, like, kill him in his strong state. So it's like, it's one of those, like, I feel like if the being is already ultimate, it's usually super hard for there to be like a better context of like the evil other than I need more ultimate power, because it's if they're already ultimate power, you know, like
first,
like with
15
Sephiroth,
hours of the game is set up with these wonderful power dynamics, and then to just mic drop the supervillain into the story. I didn't hear a word of that.
Yeah,
I feel like DBZ, like power complex wise, thinking of it like at least for me, thinking of it like DBZ is like, you already have like these Super Saiyans who can potentially be gods, and then you have Frieza, and Frieza already knows he's the ultimate being, and literally has already been blessed to just like whoop them. Like, I feel like in that aspect, it's like, even though the power dynamics have been like revealed, like if Frieza's already shown that he can go gold, it's like, you know, what more is there? Even if they do bring this, the gold's already that high.
Well, that's kind of why I keep going back to saying before, I'm not disappointed, because again, it's an entity, so it's somebody that created not only the humans, but they created the icons. Everything that you see that's there, they created it. So I can understand why everything's like kind of tied to this god that turned to evil, if you will. But then on the flip side, like I also understand what Silence talked about, was just like it's all tied to this, and yeah. So it's kind of like again like a mixed bag of like I get it,
absolutely,
and it's either you like it or you wish it was more improved.
Hey.
I'm not even saying that I dislike it. I already told you I think the game's like an 8.
Yeah,
it's a great game with wonderful gameplay.
Did you say 8? Did you give it an 8?
Oh, 8 out of 10? Oh snap! No, I gave this a straight up 10 out of 10, dude. Like
I would have early on. I would have early on. I feel there's a handful of things, and again, 8 is a wonderful score.
Yeah.
But the pacing toward the end of the game hurt it so bad for me because I wanted to power through. I wanted to do other things, but when you have these set pieces that are now, it has 15 out of 10 moments. It has moments in the game where you're flying higher than you have ever flown in any game, and you're like, this is the greatest thing in the world, and I want all those options, and I want them over and over and over and over. The Bahamut fight.
Oh, I was about to say that. The
Bahamut fight.
The Bahamut fight, man.
Freaking Ifrit coming in and fighting him, and then Phoenix coming in and fighting him, and your control is switching back and forth, and they used it in such a wonderful way. Illus, so your character is Clive and is Ifrit. His brother, who he thinks is dead, actually is basically never died back in the day and was kept alive by this like secret organization in order that they can protect the Phoenix.
Smartly written, by the way. I love that. That organization.
So Clive finds out like maybe an hour before in the storyline that Joshua's alive, and he's searching for him. So the very first time that they start interacting, they're in their dominant forms, because Clive is fighting basically one of Joshua's close friends at this point, who, by the way, Dion, one of the greatest characters in Final Fantasy ever. I love Dion. He needs his own game. Amazing. But he's fighting against Dion, and he's pleading with him to stop. And Clive realizes he's getting overpowered, and Bahamut's coming down and fighting him, and then Phoenix, your brother, that he's now being reunited with, comes in to save him, and immediately you take control of Phoenix and you start playing as him. So not only is it this wonderful moment of the brothers are reunited, but now you're Phoenix. Go.
And it's not like it's unfamiliar too, because you played Phoenix in the demo.
Yep, and it's that same theme that played at the beginning of the game, where it was Phoenix versus Ifrit, but now it's Phoenix and Ifrit fighting together against Bahamut, and it's just this incredible moment, and they're still getting beat. So Phoenix descends onto Ifrit, and they like fusion.
Literally,
and now it's this like. Yeah, it's dope. They like form into this being, and then they start fighting, and they start whooping his butt. But then Bahamut comes back into the sky and starts charging up this super laser, and they take him out of that. So then he takes a bite out of the crystal, and he goes like mega Bahamut, and he flies into space, and we follow him, and you fight him in space.
Dude, it's literally if you go on social media. And if you see people say, in Final Fantasy 16, I got to that fight, that's the fight they're talking about.
I got to that fight.
That's all they'll say. They'll say, I got to that fight.
I got to that fight. Okay.
Because
what you're describing,
we're just talking about Titan. We were just talking about Titan and how ridiculous that fight is. For something to go, all right, I'm a one-up that.
because I want to say like the closest comparison that I can think of when it comes to Switch that you're referring to makes me think of Kingdom Hearts 2, when you jump back and forth between Riku and Sora when fighting Xemnas. So and then it's like, so like the fact that you have that aspect of switching, and then on top of that, you guys describing already the Titan fight, and the fact that you said that this man bit into a crystal, because now what my mind thinks of is Bahamut. We already know Mega Flare is something. For Bahamut to then turn technically into Neo Bahamut. Yeah.
No, I have one word for you. Or two words. The first of which is Tetra Flare.
Donald.
The second of which is Zeta Flare.
Yep.
So he mega flares in like the first 10 minutes of the fight, and then builds from there.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. That was a very, 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 very incredible fight. Very incredible. Again, the way that they're able to reunite after the fight and everything like that. And kind of going back to, again, once again, I know you said this before, but Dion is a great character. When you first see him, he's walking onto the edge of a mountain, he's holding his spear, his lance, jumps off the mountain, bam, transforms to Muhammad, and he's taking on Odin. That was the most Attack on Titan stuff I've ever seen. I was like, this is way too cool.
So, we've just explained to you the biggest, most intense, incredible fight in the game. And you finish it, and they give you all these good storylines, and then it drops you back into your main base, and they're like, "Can you make me a meal?"
Yeah,
that's the pacing issues I'm talking about. I'm flying high as a kite right now. I'm literally in space fighting a super dragon as this like Voltron icon combined thing, and it's the most hype moment I've probably ever played in a video game. And then it's like, here's 12 boring as all get out side quests.
Yeah, but there's a side quest. That means you don't have to do this.
You don't, but you want, because of how good the other side quests are. You don't want to miss anything. Yeah, there's a handful of them that are not that great.
There's garbage side quests, and then there's side quests that literally you're doing them and going, I literally could have missed this.
Yeah, and on top of that, like you also have to take in consideration that this is the Final Fantasy 14 team that's working on the game, so some of those side quests do feel like that they only should be in an MMORPG, not inside of a...
They really...
And then some of them feel like they should have been main storyline.
Exactly. So, so
I'm gonna... Yeah, no, because, like, when I get the game, I'm gonna have to go through, that fantastic fight, and then I'm gonna play through all those side quests, and then I will send in our group chat whether or not, okay, I agree.
Yeah.
You know what? These
You're like, hey man, found the mushrooms.
Yeah, and kind of so we kind of, again, we're kind of talking about the pros as we're going through this. I want to bring out another pro here. Sid is the best Sid in any Final Fantasy. Period. This Sid is so fantastic. I want this voice actor to be in so many like animes and video games. Like this guy was incredible.
I had played Diablo 4 came out like I think 3 weeks prior to Final Fantasy 16. He plays one of the primary characters in Diablo 4. He plays like your mentor Lorath, who's like walking you through it. So like the game starts and like Sid starts talking to me and I'm like, no way, that's Lorath. He's an amazing voice actor. Let's go.
Yeah. This Sid was so spectacular. His voice actor was on point. Jokes were on point. The voice actor was
amazing. The writing was phenomenal.
Yes.
The model was great. His theme, his musical theme that starts playing, it like starts going and you're like, all right, this is some pirate dude. Let's go. Let's do this. It's like this folksy, almost
Robin Hood like.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was awesome.
It's so good.
Yeah,
everything about his vibe is just great. And he comes out and he's walking all stiff and whatnot, smoking a cigar. Like he's the epitome of cool. He had so many death red flags. He's like, this is my mentor figure. He's cool. He's already talking about how weak he is and all this other stuff. I'm like, I don't want him to die. He's so neat.
There's also like, again, the banter between him and Clive was just, because there's a time period where he's just like, there's a line in there, Illis, where Clive is just like, how would I know if you found him? He's like, just shout. But he thought he was joking. Found the group, and then he's just like, Clive. he's like, what? Yeah, so it was just like the banter is just fantastic. This is the best Sid we've ever had. There's some people that didn't like his daughter Mid. I liked her. I liked her. I didn't like her side quests.
You compare any NPC to Sid, and they're going to be bad.
Oh, true.
You know what?
Yeah. You know but this wasn't a talk about in comparison. They were just saying in general they just didn't like Mid. I liked Mid's personality.
She was spunky. She was fun.
No,
exactly.
I was gonna say Silent. Look, you killed me because you're like I hear. I hear, man, some people didn't like Mid, and they're going like, she was, and I was literally waiting for you to be like, yeah, she was kind of mid. I was waiting for it because I felt like that was you. I felt like that was on the tip of your tongue.
She was a fun little, like, she's a very bubbly, she's a different personality than her dad.
She reminded me of Riku.
Exactly, yeah, she's Riku. So if you like Riku, you likely will like Mid. She's extremely
like
smart. She's extremely smart and everything like that. But one of the things I wish,
before any of y'all start mentioning her age, I was freaking 8 when that came out. So shut up.
Hey, look, I wasn't gonna say nothing. And look, hey, and 2 years pass.
I will say, and this is gonna sound like a con, but I think that the writing was just so good on here. I still wish that Benedicta had came over to the good side.
She was such a great villain.
She was a great villain.
Such a good villain.
And it's not even like she was like, I mean, she was a villain, but it wasn't even so much that she was like.
She was torn. She had that connection. Yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't like she was like the true.
Sid.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So like, I wanted her and Sid to be happy. That's what I wanted. I wanted her and Sid to be happy. I felt for her character so much.
Yeah.
And then and for I'm gonna save that portion for last. What I'm about to say. Combat was fantastic. I don't feel like I really missed having a party, but at the same time, I feel like that would have been cool if I was able to intertwine with some, like if I had Jill and Joshua there, which I did have at times. I think it would have been cool if I was able to switch off to them and play as them.
That's fair.
So,
I think the lack of playing of us other characters really played into the fantasy of this is Clive's story.
Exactly, yeah.
And I think, whereas absolutely I can kind of see where somebody might see it as a con, it was a brilliant decision. You're not having to manage other party members' health, which is a little silly sometimes because they're just up in the heat of things, getting just absolutely pummeled, and they're just completely invincible.
Yeah.
But it was just fun, and you could just, okay, I've hit him with a spell, let me hit my... That's what they could have done. They could have integrated the command setting that you had for Torgal better to the other party members.
Yeah. I think that was
the one with when you had Torgal with you, it was just like, all right, I'm going to hit, then I'm going to hit my D-pad to combo into that so that I can stun lock them to go into this other ability. And it was just this really cool, like almost fighting game style. But then they would like take Torgal away from you, and you're like, you've just taken away like part of my kit. This is weird.
Mm-hmm. I think.
What abilities did you use?
The abilities I used, so I was playing with a lot of them, but the ones I ended up favoring the most was mainly between Garuda and Phoenix. So I used that claw attack that you can keep doing. I love that. Ouch. And then if you keep tapping square, the combo goes longer. So I thought that was really cool. And then, so I had that. I had I think I had the pull. I had the pull from Garuda.
So that's her passive. So that's just her. If you have
Garuda's,
like basically if you have Garuda equipped, late game it got to a place where you didn't have to have them equipped because you could start mastering abilities, and that got really fun.
Yeah, you can start mixing them up and stuff. And that's actually that kind of goes into. So my second kit was 2 super attacks. So one was the Phoenix when he's like charging up. But I had that mastered all the way out. So he charged up, and they charged up again. It was one of the coolest things. Now I have a clip on YouTube. I'll probably share it with you guys here in a second. But yeah, you charge up again, and then the other one was the big tornado from Garuda.
Interesting. Actually, I used tornado once because I wanted to see what it did, and I didn't prefer it. I adored Wicked Wheel, which is Garuda's other attack. It's the one where she spins and you kind of like go up into the air. Yeah. Because from a Devil May Cry perspective, that's a combo opener or a combo extender. So what you could do is you could go in with my favorite moves in the game were the Ifrit moves, and that's going to be your Ignition and Will of the Wikes.
Yeah.
So Ignition was just charge forward with this flaming shield in front of you, picking up any enemies along the way and dragging them along with you. And then if you canceled out of that into Wicked Wheel immediately, you would scoop all of them up and lift them into the air, where then you could then start air combos on them.
Yeah,
So
and I think that's
really
one of the
fun.
reasons why I didn't choose those, because even though I had the tornado, I wasn't really the biggest fan. Like the air combat was great. I'm just not an air combat type of guy. I like to fight on the ground, so I only used the tornado to get them out of the way.
Let me re-explain. What I mean by air combos is I would smack him twice, and then I would hit your square X move, where he would like explode and then drive them all down into the ground.
Gotcha. Yeah, because
was-
you very much can do air combat. Like you could teleport, fight, very Final Fantasy
bruh.
15-isk.
I had a buddy shoot me some clips to where he was messing around with air combos, and what he used the most was actually Garuda's. That was bright.
Mm-hmm.
Cameron's just had 12 ideas.
Oh yeah, no. You're talking about my screen. Yeah, because I'm actually what I'm doing right now is I'm actually going to share with you guys real quick.
No, perfect.
My screen here.
It was just like, oh.
Yeah.
I was like, dang, are you about to transform, bro?
All right, let me know when you guys can see it.
Yeah, it's watching stream. Okay.
Is it showing?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So this is my fight right here. So this is the Phoenix ability right here that I used.
Yep.
At the time I don't think I had it fully uploaded because I definitely there's another combo after that you can do. Oh yeah, I use Ramu's abilities a lot too. And this is the fight with I love transforming into that. Yeah, this was a fun moment here for sure. You guys can hear it too, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Yeah, this was definitely a fun moment here for me. Brought in the tornado. Yeah, like I literally just kind of switched between those abilities pretty often, and that was my main kit. It did get. Go ahead.
Go ahead. No, you're good.
I was gonna say it did get a little bit difficult at times to see through the tornado. so that was a little annoying on some fights, but it came in so handy for me whenever I was fighting off. When I was fighting off groups of enemies and stuff. So I thought I was going to use more of Odin's abilities when I got that unlocked, but I actually was not drawn to those. Same thing for Bahamut. I wasn't as drawn to those as I thought I would be.
Bahamut's passive was absolutely busted. His regular moves were decent, and then his ult was one of the best ults in the game. Mega Flare. Mega Flare was gross.
Yeah, I had Mega Flare attached, but it didn't do. Maybe I don't know like what I could do to make it stronger, because I know that I was doing more damage with my other super abilities in this.
Right. So the big kicker with Mega Flare and with actually just Mega Flare. So the big thing with Mega Flare is the animation was so incredibly long that you could actually utilize it to help your cooldowns. So what would happen is you would get a boss or something staggered.
I see Illis is engrossed.
You get the boss staggered, and then you would build up their meter to 1.5, and then before their stagger meter went away, you would pop Mega Flare. What Mega Flare would do is it would lock their any super move locks basically time to where their stagger meter isn't moving for the entire time. What is moving is your cooldown timers. So you burn all your cooldowns, and then you pop one or two supers, and then by the time those animations are over, you have your cooldowns back, and no actual time has progressed. So it's basically ways of canceling through those animations.
Interesting.
So,
and as you see, the first part that you just saw there, Illis, that was the first fight against Kupka, which again is Titan. We're about to get inside the second fight. On this particular run through, a spoiler alert, I failed it because I misread an ability. I didn't realize that I thought I had to try to dwindle him down, but it really was just no, get the heck out of the way. That's what it was, and it was a one hitter quitter. So there's no surviving it, but combat on this was great. It feels amazing.
I would say, like because like the fluidity of that is like I want to say is like like watching like the attacks and movements is almost as fluid as me hitting certain combinations with Cloud, just not waiting for the ATB bar to go before I'm able to use a limit. Like
This game feels incredible.
Yeah.
Like the fluidity of that is amazing, and then just how it jumps between, oh, this is the cutscene, this is this.
Yeah.
No frames dropping. It is non-stopping.
I do have a question for you there, Illis. Just by looking at this, again, this is my gameplay, and I don't want you to answer silent because I know you know the answer to this. But just by looking at this, do you think all I'm doing is hitting square to beat this game?
No, and the only reason why I feel like that is because of the things that like over on the side, I'm seeing like it looks like the I guess like your
Like skills?
It's not summon, but like your skills are in the corner.
Yeah.
So it feels like you may be like cycling through the skills, and not necessarily pushing just like square only to do the attack. I'm sure that there's probably like just like in Devil May Cry, there's an easy, an easy control setting. So like,
that's what I was gonna say, because like now here's the thing, I personally don't understand why people were trying hard. You're gonna have haters out there, but there's some people out there that try to make this game look bad, because there's a person that put a post on Twitter to where he's eating a sandwich and just hitting square. But if you see inside the corner, he has all the rings attached, which are accessibility rings. So you have one that's going to be increased damage, one that's like auto healing, one that's auto dodging, to where, and then you can also send it to like an easy mode for difficulty. So essentially, could you make this game to where you just hit square? Close to it, yeah, you could.
Oh, there's no close to it about it. Like, if you have on those accessibility rings, the game is a joke.
Exactly. So it's just like but it's just like, if you, that's a choice that you want to play for anyone that just doesn't really want to play a lot of video games. They just want to know the story. That's a way for them to play. But it's just like for you to purposely go out of your way and try to be like, oh, Final Fantasy is so easy, I could just go and hit square the whole time and eat a sandwich. No, you're not even challenging yourself at all. That's not the way that the game was intended.
Yeah,
so,
I was gonna say
that was the move right there. That was the move where I should have backed out.
Yeah, and I was gonna say that man was charging up. That definitely looked like a get the heck out of Dodge.
Yeah, but I think because at that point I was already playing for so long, and I think I just got done with a mission or a fight that it was one of those like you had to drill them and like knock them down before they. So
in Cameron's defense, there is a mechanic in. Yeah, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, because of doing something that's similar. Mm-hmm. And it not being the same thing, like I can completely understand that, because you can fight one thing and it's like, oh, you need to hurry up and do this because like a bomb, like the enemy bomb. You know that you have to hurry up and kill it before it gets so big, glows and explodes.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like that. Oh, I fought so many bombs. Oh, this is the bomb move.
Yeah.
But there is actually a mechanic in the game of. It normally tells you, so it's not something that you can normally misread, but their health bar and their stagger bar will turn purple, and you actually have to whittle it down all the way to the bottom, or an ability will go off. So that is a mechanic in game. So I can absolutely see where Cameron might have, in the moment, thought, "Oh, I need to burn him down real quick."
Yeah, and that's exactly what was going through my head. I was like, "Oh, wait, snap! Let me get out." And then like I tried to go and heal myself like right at the time when he hit me, just in case there was like a small chance of me living. That didn't work. I beat him on my second run through, but there's another mechanic that's like that later on against the Bahamut fight, where there's all these different orbs that you have to destroy them all within a certain amount of time, and if you don't do it, it's an automatic game over. That one was rough for me. I actually had to do that one a couple times. But I would say that the hardest fight that I had to do on the entire game, and this is a pro, because again, if you want a challenge, and for anyone that just says, oh, you just got to hit square, nope, it's not the case. Fighting the Hunt Balrog, that big old dragon.
He was fun. He was real fun.
I fought because I went to him immediately when I had it, so I was 10, 15 levels under leveled. And he two-shotted me the first time. And I was like, okay.
I had something to prove because I had just died like way too many times against it was the Flan Prince.
Okay.
So it was the like slime enemy that had like the big two arms, but it was the first time you ever ran into one, and it was a hunt. So he had a ton of health, and very similar. He could just two-shot me, and I'm fairly certain I died to him probably 8 or 10 times. And I was just really embarrassed, just like, this is awful. And my buddy jumps into my stream, the same one I was talking about earlier. He goes, "There's this fight you got to go do," and I was like, "All right, I got to go do it." And he's like, "This guy tore me up," and I was telling him about my issues with the Flan Prince. He goes, "Oh, I died way more against this guy with the Flame Prince," and I was like, "All right, let's go, let's go." So I like turned on Dark Souls mode, and I was
that's exactly what it was. That's exactly.
I turned on Dark Souls mode, and I no hit that fight.
Oh, nice, dude. Because
no hit that fight.
I wasn't like. Here's the thing, like because I went into the fight. And I was just like, these are hunts, like they're challenging, yes, but I've been able to handle all of them up to this point.
He hyped it up good for me, so I
didn't have a hype man, so I went into it thinking everything was fine and dandy, and I was going to walk out of that fight. No, Balrog was like, pop, pop, game over. I was like, okay. So then I went inside of a second time, and I started like, because I knew some of the patterns that he was doing, so I was dodging him, and I was just like, let's see how much damage I can at least do to see if it'll be worth me doing this. So I started chipping away at his health, just chipping away, got killed, and I was like, I know I could damage him. I don't know if it's going to be worth me trying to do it a third time before I'm leveled up. I was like, all right, third time's a try. Let me try it one last time. That fight took me almost 2 hours. It took me a while. I finally beat him. And I had the last elixir, so it was one of those ones that if you have it equipped on your wheel, when you die, you just get resurrected just like a phoenix down. So I had that equipped, and so I was able to fight confidently with that. But yeah, on my third try, I was able to beat him, and I felt so accomplished, man. I literally took a video clip on it because I was planning on making a post, and like, yeah, this game is really just hit square, isn't it? Like I was gonna make a post about that. And because there was no way, there was absolutely like at that point I already knew it wasn't just a hit square game, but that one was so far from just hitting square. I was like, man, I don't know if the rings would even really necessarily help. Like it was a tough fight.
The moment that I heard that the battle system was like Devil May Cry, anyone who went out of their way to say, "Oh, it's just a hit square game," I'm like, no. It's not, because if you've played Devil May Cry, you know that the game is literally based on your ability of skill when it comes to your interactions of fights. Can you go through the game and only hit square and do basic combos? Yes. But you're always looking for that triple S whenever you get the chance.
Yeah.
To do your fight. So the moment that I found out that was a play style, not only was I crazy intrigued because of the fact that this was finally now and I'm gonna say this: if you can't adopt with your games, learn. Take the time, take the chance, learn. Not every game is for every person, and that is definitely a thing that I do understand. But give it a chance and try to learn. As us being old Final Fantasy heads, we are used to it all being turn-based.
Yep.
So the fact that and I kind of bleed this into Resident Evil. You've had so many people who have went out of their way to say, this is slow, this is this, can't you do something else? You're on this number, why are you still doing this? So the fact that they went out of their way and have slowly over time been tailoring the game to be more action based for all of the people who have been complaining that it's too slow, for it to now be where people are okay with it and get backlash for it to be where people need it to be. This is kind of the 16 reads Resident Evil 6 to me, because so many people hated 6 because it wasn't Resident Evil. But this is the same game that you were complaining about, that you needed to strafe in order for you to fight. But
Yeah.
the only time that you need to strafe is in an action setting. You're playing a survival horror game. You need to count your bullets. You don't need to miss your shots.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what
People just don't make sense.
You know what I'm saying?
You can't please everybody. You know.
So like, you
And
know,
if you try to, you'll please no one.
Exactly.
So the fact that, like, you know, with 16, you have your old heads who have been wanting it to go back to fantasy. Boom, you have that there. You have your people who've been craving a story. Boom, you have that there. And now you have your newcomers who've just been coming off of playing the remake of 7.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, because, you know, they've been getting their actions.
Which,
Okay.
by the way, incredible. I went into 7 remake with I'm not gonna lie, pretty low expectations. I wasn't sure what I was going to be getting into. The combat was decent, but it wasn't necessarily what I wanted out of a Final Fantasy. But for them to put that much love into the characters and to really make you feel for each one as individuals, that moment with Barrett pounding his hand against the rock because he legitimately thought Marlene was dead.
Yeah.
As a father, I broke. I was, this was not some character in a video game. This is somebody that I had grown closer to over the last 20 hours, watching him try to not only save his people, but to try to be a better father, to try to look after Tifa, because
save the planet.
here I, and all this other stuff, and here he is just like, the voice actors and the storyline and the writing in 7 Remake were eons better than they had any right to be.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to bring up 7 Remake earlier, but man.
Yeah, and just a real quick touch up on that. I agree. Like I already was super high on Final Fantasy 7 Remake, but then when they said that it was only going to be focusing on Midgar, it went down a little bit because I was just like, that's like an hour or 2 hours into the game. Like what are they doing? Then it came out.
The fact that they made me care about Jesse and Biggs.
They made me care about literally Jesse. They made because again, like for the longest time, it's always been Team Air, Team Tifa. I like them both, but I like Tifa more. But I like them both. But then like it was just like, how did they make you care about Jesse? Like you want to be Team Jesse now. So it's just you're
like Tifa had your chance. You go get her.
Yeah,
Cloud. You get that pizza.
I mean, but you're not lying though. Like the thing that I really liked when it came to the remake, because again, I was fascinated by the combat because coming off of the stagger system, the only thing that we had at the time was that I felt like really did the stagger system well was 13. So you have you need to focus your combination of attacks, and you need to make sure that everyone's doing their due part so that you can get that stagger. And for me with 7, the fact that now, I can pick who I want to play for me to do these certain things. I can focus on Barrett to just to be like the absolute gun, like the gun barreling toting dude that he is, and the fact that the weapons were more expansive than just here's an equipped. The fact that the weapons now were you now have this, but you can expand the materia. Your weapon's a little higher. You have these particular set of skills that are within this. Okay, I now know that this weapon is more tailored towards magic. This weapon is more tailored towards physical. This weapon's balanced. This weapon's more materia based.
Yeah, it gave you options. It wasn't just this weapon is better than the other. Because there's a time period where you could have had Barrett with a boxing glove to make it a melee, or you can have him be long range or something like that. So so it wasn't one weapon was necessarily better than the other. It just comes down to how do you want to strategize, how do you want to play in these particular fighting situations.
And so the fact that they tailored that with all of the characters, even with them being in their specific role, to now know that you have this in 16 and 16. They're already hearing just like the discussion between you two. It already makes me think of Dark Souls. Dark Souls, Elden Ring. Okay, what's your particular gaming style? How do you go through the game? Do you like your dexterous weapon? Do you like your heavy hitting great sword? Are you a magic person and like to, use these magic blasts from the back? But is it the magic blast that you want, or do you want to be able to tailor to fire? Do you want to tailor to the dark? So the fact that, just hearing just like the contrast of abilities between you two, and it's just like, oh, I used a tornado. Well, I used it once, but I realized that wasn't exactly for me. The fact that you can even have a discussion in the fighting style is already, like chef's kiss just for because it. I mean, we're talking Final Fantasy. The last time that we've had a discussion this deep on combat on Final Fantasy was, hey, well, what limit break did you use? Exactly what weapon did you have equipped? It was about what weapon, what skills had you unlocked, what level were you? We're not talking about.
Illis, did you play 14? Did you play
14? He played. I was about to say he played a little bit of 14 with us.
Yeah, I played 14 with you guys.
In game is insane when it comes to skill rotations.
Well, yeah. Well, okay. But
I know it's an MMO. It's different. It's
exactly.
So one thing, if I could interject for like a hot second, I will say for kind of going back to 16.
I will give you a lukewarm one, and that is it.
What you're saying right now, as far as choice of how you want to play, that exists within the abilities, because in 16 there are weapons that are better than the other. There's not necessarily armor, which I will actually say
gear in 16 is a massive con.
Yeah,
gear in 16 sucks.
That was something I didn't think about until we just talked about gear in like 7. Yeah, so that actually is a con. Is that there's there's really 3 outfits that Clive goes through. One when he's a kid, when he's what's it called? And not a bearer, but the branded. When he's a branded soldier, and then one when he comes out of that, when he reintroduces himself as another identity. Yeah, but as far as the abilities though,
May Cry ability, it's like that Devil May Cry outfit.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what it is.
It's like crying as his pecs are like tearing it apart.
Mm-hmm. I think that so I'm glad to see that some of my theories that I had of the trailer was proven wrong when the game came out, because again, like in the beginning of the game, like and they actually say this inside the trailer, so it's not really much of a spoiler, but it is. But Ifrit is the one that kills Phoenix, which happens to be Joshua. But then you know that Ifrit is Clive. So, but then inside the trailer, you see later on that that's like an Ifrit versus Ifrit. So for the longest time, I thought that guy that was in the robe was also had another dominant somehow of Ifrit. But it turns out that wasn't the case. It actually turned out to be why are you giving me that look?
Who did it turn out to be, Cameron?
It turned out to be Clive that killed.
No.
Yeah.
No, I mean the guy in the robe. Who was it?
Oh. And actually, that's a question. No, that's honestly a question.
Who was the guy in the robe?
Well, here's the thing. I wanted to say Ultima.
It was Ultima.
But if you relook at the image, it looks like it was Barnabas's right hand man.
No, it was the same character model that they used for like older Jonathan. They just used the same dude in a robe. Or Joshua. I was
about to say, because I saw the silver in the, like, that's the reason why, like, I actually wanted to bring that up today. I was going to say,
no, it was Ultima. Ultima went back to the beginning of the game, and he was like, I'm going to make you awaken at this point so that you think you kill your brother, and it causes all these events.
Yeah, because I was about to say, I do remember him saying, like, because it was a different language, but the language when they translated it, it was, we found you. And
Ultima.
Yeah, and that's how that.
It's the same language that he uses the whole game.
Yeah, that was the thing. So when it said we found, I was like, all right, clearly this is Ultima. But then when I look again, every single time I look at that image, like I do see that faint of the white hair, which again technically could be Ultima. But I just didn't think that was, like I felt like there's still a chance that it could have been Barnabas's guy that just knew more about it or something like that. Like it was.
That's not me remembering his name, by the way. I just happened to notice it's the same name from Norse mythology for Odin's horse.
Oh, gotcha. Interesting.
Yeah, the six-legged horse's name is Sleipnir.
Well, there you go. But yeah, so and I wanted to. All right, so so one thing I will say is a pro. This is a big pro, and this is probably my last thing I can really think of. There's so much we could talk about it, but
Absolutely.
But yeah, I think this would be my last thing that I would say as far as a pro on this discussion for Final Fantasy 16. They made me feel so heavy on the relationship between Clive and Jill. They made me feel so heavy on that, and Jill is Final Fantasy 16's Tifa to me. Like when I think about the Final Fantasy relationships across all Final Fantasies I played, the number one that I always put at the top up until this moment was Yuna and Tidus, even though there's like a little cheesy. It was, at the time when I first saw it, I thought it was like an incredible relationship. When I look back at it, I was like, oh, some of the localization and dialogue that they had on here is a little cheesy, but it is what it is. It's an age game. I get it.
So
But
I'm gonna touch on that real quick. I'll let you get back into it. I promise.
yeah,
The laughing scene is so much better than anyone gives it credit for.
It really is now.
Both of the no. Both of them are trying to make the other one feel better.
Mm-hmm.
Both of them are in probably some of the deepest depression that they've ever existed. So they're both trying to laugh. That awkward laugh that's coming out, it isn't bad voice acting or anything. It's both of them. Okay, fine, I'm going to try to laugh. And it comes out as that. But in watching the other person do it, they start laughing like
Really?
legitimately.
yeah.
And it's this really cute moment of both of them awkwardly trying to make the other one feel better, but in trying to do that for the other person, they do it for themselves too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's a true bonding moment. Look,
Yeah.
anyone who does not understand that scene, listen. That game came out and I was like 10 or 11. If I understood that at 10 or 11 and you don't understand that, you're in your 20s, there's something wrong with your
I feel
comprehension.
like I have to make that an exception because people are like, 10's awful, that laughing scene is bad. I'm like, no, it's not.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it was meant to be, yeah. I was about to say it was meant to be like kind of like a forced, awkward moment, but then it turned into a genuine belly laugh at the end of it. So yeah, no, I completely get that. But I'm just more or less comparing two different games from 3 generations ago versus now. But like for the longest time through all the Final Fantasies, that was my number one was Yuna and Tidus. Right underneath that, honestly, was Lady Unalesca or Unalesca and Noctis.
Not Unalesca.
Oh, what was it? What's her name?
Unalesca is 10.
Yeah, Luna Freya.
Luna Freya, that's it. Yes. I was about to say that.
Look.
I'm saying something weird.
I was like, Unalesca, the second to last boss of Final Fantasy X. Who was she related to?
Look. See, he's mixing up people, and this is 15. That's 15. That shows the gate.
Yeah, no. I was about to say 15. Yeah, so there's that. That was actually, I did enjoy their relationship, even though they didn't see each other a lot in the game. That was something that I was able to, after replaying the Royal Edition, after watching King's Glaive and everything like that, I did enjoy that relationship. And again,
it was, their relationship was a lot better in the straight to VHS movie.
And then
I mean, I think we would have seen something lovely in the Luna Freya chapter if it would have been released.
Mm-hmm. And then
Sold.
my third one would be Squall and Renoa. That would be my third one. But after,
that's the cheesy one.
See,
what, Squall and Renoa?
It is kind of cheesy, but they're teenagers.
Mm-hmm.
I know, but
like
I mean,
Squall's an awkward teenager.
I just wonder what that would look like if it wasn't us reading it. You know what I mean? Like, I wonder if it was actually acted out, it might be received differently.
Yeah.
I don't know. There's only so many ways you can deliver whatever.
I mean, he's not wrong. But I mean, when it comes to that, though, at the same time, that's what I kind of, for me, Squall and Renoa's relationship kind of sit at the same level as Tidus and Yuna for me,
Yeah, for sure.
because both of them are teens, and both of them have like this awkward thing, but it's like both of them are in an odd place when it comes to like responsibility.
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like you have like Renault, who has already tried to like, you know, I'm gonna come up with this rebellion because like this is what I need to do in order for me to do right, and then like she ends up being a part of something a lot bigger than what she even expected. And the entire time, Squall is playing Guardian, trying to like ensure that she's okay. And like in the same aspect, like it kind of translates that in 10, but it's way more straightforward in 10. There's just um, there's just a lot more awkward dialogue because of everybody else that's crowding them. At least to me, that's how it
Yeah.
translates.
I but after playing 16, I really do think that this is my favorite relationship, Clive and Jill.
I think it's a really good relationship because it's not forced.
It is not forced. It's not forced.
It's
Like
a relationship. They are friends. They've been friends for
Yep.
decades,
Mm-hmm.
and they're there for each other. They're supporting each other. There is that tension there the whole time, but they're not acting on it but not because they're not brave enough to, but because it's not necessary.
Mm-hmm.
So I love their relationship. The scenes that she's on screen and the focus is on the two of their friendship, the two of their relationship. They're wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
But
And
that's who she is in the story. Her story is Clive's love interest,
yeah.
and
And like
it's told wonderfully. I think she deserved more.
I do. I agree. I agree with that too as well. Like there's that scene. There's that line when because Clive. It's found out that Clive is able to absorb people's dominance powers. That's part of the reason why, because they keep calling him the vessel, and he's able to absorb all these powers, and he's able to use powers right now without it being consequential to his body, as we know it. So he absorbs Jill's powers as Shiva, so that's when you get the Shiva abilities on that one. And I ended up using that ability quite a bit actually. But
Shiva's
yeah,
very good.
Yeah, Shiva's
Her
were fun.
ult, her ult is the best stagger builder in the game, and it's not even close. A boss could have this much stagger. You pop that ult once, it chunks it to here, and then it chunks it to here.
Mhm.
It's gross.
Yeah.
Rhyme, which is like the snowflake that you can throw out, is also a really, 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 really good dot. My normal setup that I used, always used Will of the Wikes. That is low key the most broken ability in the entire game. It's the one where the fireballs go around you.
Yeah.
The reason it's so broken is each of those fireballs will eat a attack and have you take 0 damage.
So it's like a little shield then.
4 of them.
Yeah.
You can eat 4 attacks, and that's while dodging. That's while doing everything else.
Mm-hmm.
And then on top of that, every single time that they're circling you, each of those fireballs is hitting all the enemies around you.
Yeah.
So it's utility in so many different ways.
Yeah.
On Ramu's, there's one called Lightning Rod.
Yeah.
And you like put down this lightning ball, and then any attack that hits it will do it. So I'll repeat that statement. Ramu has an ability called Lightning Rod where you can put down a ball, and basically every time you hit it, it puts out a pulse of electricity.
Oh, that's kind of cool.
So you open with that. You run up. I normally ignitioned everything in as that firewall that you dive through, and you push everything into the same place. Throw down that. You backstep once. Throw a Rhyme out, which Rhyme was like this ice field, to where you would cast it over it. So it would be a dot hitting Lightning Rod. So every time the dot hit Lightning Rod, it would pulse, 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 pulse. Then you'd have Will of the Wikes on you, so you'd have those fireballs going around. You'd charge up into it, and the fireballs would hit the Lightning Rod going pulse, 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 pulse. And so you're just building up this crazy amount of dot damage. And then before anything went away, you would hit it with Mega Flare, and then it would just be like... And so it's just constant lightning rod pulses. Staggers meters would go away in like a heartbeat. I basically played the game in a game of I'm going to stagger you as fast as I can, burn damage on you using most of my regular burn abilities, and then I'm going to stagger you again.
Yeah, but
So most of the things they fought, they just like stayed on the ground.
Yeah, but that scene though when Clive takes Jill's powers, and she has this whole speech about it and everything like that, and she's smiling and there's a tear that goes down when he says, "Who would have thought a smile could bring me so much joy?" And then they had their first kiss. I was like, bro, this game is incredible. And then
it was an amazingly sweet moment, made a little less sweet at the fact that they were both naked.
Yeah, but you understand why they were naked. Like, it's not like they just want to get frisky.
I was gonna say the right people think that would have made this scene like 100 times better.
Well, so the entire they were soaked. They had just like ran out of the ocean, so they were all like soaked. So they had to get their clothes. That's what I'm assuming.
Yeah.
So they're sitting awkwardly, like back to back, both butt naked. So it wasn't like a romantic naked. It was like
survival
we're naked. We're not looking at each other. We're gonna have this romantic conversation with our backs touching, and then they like turn around and touch each other, like look at each other, and they like hold each other and they hug each other, and he like holds her out and he says, "I never would have thought a smile would have brought me so much joy." And I'm just sitting there going, "Oh yeah, it's the smile, all right."
Yeah, I just thought. Well, I think it was the smile because I think he has that much respect for Jill. Like, obviously, she's a beautiful girl.
It was written that way. I'm sure it was written that way. But they were like sitting there on the beach making out naked, and he's like, "I love your smile."
Yeah, right. Yeah, I do think that. Again,
they've never kissed before, and here they are, like
now they
spooning.
Kiss, yeah. But yeah, and I do like so again like that is I was already been rooting for them at that point, but when that happened, that I was just like, let's go.
Yeah,
and
of course.
Fast forwarding to the end. So now this one again, major spoiler territory, but again, this is a whole spoiler cast, so who really cares? But at the end, he finally says to Jill before he goes off to fight Ultima that he loves her, and and that was the only time you heard him say it through the entire thing. It's clear that he loves her. It's clear that he cares for her. It's clear that he's willing to give up everything for her. But he finally says it. It resonates. They go out to fight Ultima. All this stuff happens up there, which I won't spoil that one too much for you. I know the spoiler cast, but I won't spoil that one too much for you. But he does come down. He does come back down, and he puts his hand out, and you see that his hand is turning gray because he used too much power. And he said, and I think he even says, "Can you see the star, Jill?" Or I think he even says, like, "I'm sorry," or something like that. It goes back to
are you looking at them as well? It's basically the and then it goes back to where Jill and Gav and all them are at. Torgal's looking out inside the moonlight, and then Jill goes over to look at it. There's like a red star that's next to the moon, and so that star is the one that she's been praying to the whole time.
Yeah,
remember when she says, "I'm going to pray to."
Yeah.
So there's a big theory going around that the reason the star blinked is because it was saving him.
So this is where the conversation is good. This is where I wanted to take it with you because here's the thing. So when you see Clive's hand turn gray, indicating that he used too much power and is dying, and he passes out on the beach, then Jill looks out inside the sky. She sees the red star flicker off. And there's also a thing between Joshua, Clive, and Jill where they can sense each other's presence. Right. She was no longer able to sense his presence anymore, and she freaked out, crying, and left the room.
It's not explicitly said. It's not explicitly said that she can't feel his presence, but I would believe that.
Yeah, that's what they're getting at. Because she's looking at the light, it flickers off. And then
it could be what they're getting at. It absolutely could
be. But here's because here. Oh, go ahead.
Well, I was gonna say, me being a person on the outside, knowing each person's thing, I would have felt that the flicker, the flicker potentially would have been Joshua because you said Joshua's Phoenix.
Well, here's the thing, Joshua, because that one it's not necessarily connected to Joshua because at this moment Joshua had already died for a second time. So Joshua's been dead already, and the star is still shining. it wasn't until Clive is laying there on the beach, and it looks like he's breathing his last breaths, looking at the beautiful sky, and then after that is when the red star goes away.
Mike Spiegel?
So, real quick.
Yes.
Before we get into the is he, isn't he, are they, aren't they, I know I was dogging on Ultima quite a bit earlier. I love where they went with it. Mm-hmm. No, I wish that things were different, but the way that they went with it was so cool. Illus, the way they crafted it was these deities, these gods, lived on the earth, and they were utilizing their magic, but they realized that the magic was causing the world to like deny them. So it was starting to spread this
blight.
This like almost blight, this contagion that was contaminating the land, and it was spreading it. So to stop it from spreading, they sealed themselves away. Well, first they created humans, and they sealed themselves away, gifting their magic to them so that they could use them to basically bolster the land while they were safe in their like containment. But they were never really present for the humans. They existed, but they didn't actually serve them. They didn't do anything for them. It was a very deistic approach. Deism is a aspect of, or it's a belief that God exists, but he created the world and then he turned his back on the world, like he doesn't interact with it at all. It's a very deistic approach for Final Fantasy 16 because they sealed themselves away. In sealing themselves away, they made humans find something else to believe in, and that was their will. That was their internal, basically the fact that they were sentient. Their self had to thrive in this place where they had no deities, no gods to turn to. Their will grew to such a place that it was now basically on point, if not as strong as the gods. So the gods, sensing that, came back to then basically attempt to harvest that power to save themselves from the containment or the contamination. But the wills were so strong that they were able to overcome. Like, that's dope. Yeah. That is awesome. The way that they went with it, the way that they built it up, and the way that they basically had to show Ultima coming to that realization of your will has gotten you to where it is. You are nothing without your will, and here I was trying to just take it away as if it was nothing. So I have to respect it, and I have to come full force now. And that was this amazing lead up to this final fight of, I didn't realize that leaving you alone for so long was going to embolden you and strengthen you in this way.
Yeah.
And so now it was Logos versus Mythos versus the gods, and it's just, oh.
Yeah, and Mythos was pretty much Clive. That's what they kept on calling the vessel.
I understand that, but Logos and Mythos are actually, it was a very, very poorly veiled thing. Logos and Mythos are aspects that you can appeal to in writing. So anytime you're writing a story, if you're appealing to their mythos, you're appealing to like their desire for something grand, for something, and then there's Logos, which is the appealing to the logic, appealing to the brain, appealing to basically just the ability to form. And so that's why it was forming the will. The one thing that they didn't touch on was ethos. Ethos would be like them appealing to your good nature. So Logos and Mythos are aspects in like the writing world, like when writing literature. So I thought it really funny that they just didn't decide to give them other names. They were just like, this is Logos, this is Mythos.
Yeah, but real fast again, kind of going back to, and this is kind of where I wanted to take the conversation. So yeah, you
guys didn't realize you were having an English class today.
Jill saw the star. She saw it fade off. She ran off crying, and she's at like the dock, like just bawling her eyes out. You're feeling for her because again, this person that's been her childhood friend, that is the love of her life, is to believe to
She
be
had
dead.
to watch, and she's already had to watch him die once.
Yeah,
recently.
exactly. And then you had Torgal come through. He's howling away and everything like that. Also sad. But then like there's a line, and I can't remember the exact phrase of it, but it was something saying like, "I will return to you as the sun sets in the morning," or something like that, or the sun rises in the morning or something. So as that's happening, the sun is coming up, and you see her kind of smile a little bit because it's almost like there's a little bit of hope that he's still going to come back to her. Fast forwarding to the end credits of the game, because right now it is believed that Clive died. But then fast forwarding to the end credits of the game, there's like these kids that survive, that are like human race is thriving and all that good stuff. And there's these kids that are playing and everything like that. The mom tells one of the kids to go ahead and light the fire, and it's showing that they're doing it the old school way, just like
Manually, without magic.
Yeah, Flint and everything. Yeah, they're doing it without magic because magic does not exist right now in that world. So showing that
Not only does it not exist, but magic has not existed for so long that the
They
mom
believe it's
even
a myth.
says, no, that's in fairy tales.
Yeah, but then here's the thing: as the kid is going outside to play, there's a book that is on the table and is written by Joshua Rosefield, which is
Yeah.
But Joshua couldn't have wrote it though because he died, like he died, and then two, the pen that was on the book was something that the I can't remember what his name is. Hippocrates, is that his name?
Something like that.
Yeah, so
I'll be right back in the restroom.
yeah. So that scholar had given that pen to Clive and says, when you finish this war, pretty much, I hope that you put your sword down and pick up this pen. And Clive says, I will have plenty to write about. So it just kind of insinuates that, because, and another little fun fact here, and this is a little spoiler, but not really. So, well, no, this is a spoiler. This is a spoiler. I take that back. So this is a spoiler. Some point along the line, unfortunately, Sid dies. And if it's out that Sid has truly died, then the resistance would not, they feel like the resistance would have failed. So Clive took on Sid's name to go be the new acting Sid. So so you'll see some people refer to him as Clive at a certain point in the game, but then you'll see a lot of people still reference him as Sid. So you'll see that happen. So what the theory is that Clive ended up surviving, and then just wrote the book under his brother's name, so his brother Joshua's legacy can still live on. So that's the question I have for Silent whenever he gets back: does he believe that that Clive is alive or dead? Because now granted, I love these characters. I want them to all survive and stuff like that. But if Jill did not exist, I would have accepted Clive dying. But because Jill exists and I love that relationship so much, I really hope that it came to the point to where Clive actually did survive and was able to make his way back to Jill, and she deserves to be happy. She's been through so much torment already. They both have. They just need to be happy. Just in a nutshell, there, Silent. I was just telling him again how there's the pen, and then how Clive took on Sid's name to keep that resistance going. So what it's being insinuated is that Clive is alive, and then just wrote that book under Joshua's name, so that way Joshua's name will not, his legacy can live on. He wouldn't have died.
Gotcha.
So yeah, what's your thought about? Do you think that Clive is dead, or you think that he's alive?
There are a handful of options. One thing that I don't know if you've mentioned, but after defeating Ultima, after realizing that he was going to have to drain a ton of power to take him down, he walks over to Joshua's mangled body, and activates the power of the Phoenix and touches him on the chest, which closes up the wound that was at least on him. It very clearly doesn't seem to make him alive.
Right.
But why even show him doing that if it's not going to actually save him once you actually name drop Joshua at the end.
Mm.
So the possibility exists that Clive did expend too much power and it killed him. But if Clive survived the fall, then it's very easily that to accept that Joshua could have survived, and that the power of the Phoenix actually did bring Joshua back, and he's the one who actually wrote the book. That possibility exists. The possibility exists that they both survived. That because we've already seen Sid's arm partially stoned up, which means that just because you start turning to stone doesn't necessarily mean you die. So they could both be alive because he used the power of the Phoenix on him and he used that. They could both be dead. Not nearly a nice ending, but they absolutely could both be dead, and that's basically what the game wanted you to think at first until showing those other scenes. The fourth thing that actually Max, of all people, wrote up, Maximilian Dude, as you obviously know, but Max brought up the potential. It's a story. The entire story of Final Fantasy XVI doesn't exist in the world that is at the end of the game, because it was actually just a fictional book that was written by someone named Joshua Rossfield, who self-imposed his own name into his own story. I don't like that as an option. I choose to think that that's not the option, but that's Max's theory.
Yeah.
So, what in my headcanon, I do like the theory that Clive came back, was able to live through the process, and that he penned the book in Joshua's name. Because I'm a little girl and love happy endings, I hope everyone's alive.
Yeah. Yeah, I was literally telling Illis that too as well. I was just like, yeah, no, I want them all to live because I like all the characters, but
specifically, I hope they're all alive because I want all of them in DLC. Thank you very much.
Yeah, and that does bring my question. Then on that point, what do you think the DLC is going to be? Then do you think it's going to be us actually visiting Leviathan? Do you think it's going to be more on the fact of Jill's backstory?
Here's some things. Leviathan. There's I'm going to say two theories. There's really only one theory, and then there's my theory. So only one of them really counts, and it's obviously mine. The theory that the theory that the community has. Illis is just dying over here. He's like, this guy's an idiot. The theory that the community has is that the girl, I can't remember her name, but it is important. The girl that was all throughout the storyline selling potions, poultices,
yeah. I think they literally called her a medicine girl almost the majority of the game.
Right, but she has a name, and I believe Dion actually called her it.
Yeah.
Chadley. I'm playing.
That was the one! But no, her name, if you go into like the registry, the books and whatnot, she shares a name with, I think, like one of the rivers. So there's a theory that she is either the future or the current dominant of Leviathan and just hasn't manifested yet.
Kihel, that's her name.
Sure.
That's what it says right here on Game Rant. It says a convincing new fan theory reveals why Kihel, perhaps better known as the Medicine Girl in Final Fantasy XVI, may be the awakened dominant of Leviathan.
So, irrelevant, because I think I'm right. No, this is literally just like a, hey, what if? Why did the village why did everyone in the village die that the woman that they saved from the other continent that had the baby?
Oh, yeah, from Ash.
They were they went Akashic.
Mm-hmm.
Here's the issue. Bearers are not immune to being Akashic.
Yeah.
Dominants are immune to being Akashic. What if the baby that she was carrying is going to be the next Leviathan?
Yeah. I can see
Again,
that.
it's not a great theory, but I was just like, why did she survive?
Yeah. That's still something. That is something.
She has a bearer, so the bearers do have resistance. But that was a mana flood. That was not a there happens to be some stuff in the area and there's some people got infected. No, it was a flood.
Yeah.
The entire area was flooded with ether, an ether flood. Thank you. So in my opinion, the only ones who've been able to walk the ether without turning Akashic have been the dominants.
Yeah.
So either the mom is a dominant, which I don't think that would be true because she would have absolutely manifested at this point.
Right.
Or the baby she's carrying is a dominant. Because they did definitely refer to the baby as a bearer, and that was why she was resistant to it. But if that was the case, if bearers were immune to it, then through all of our delves into the Akashic mines and things along those lines, we would have ran into one or two bearers who were like freaking out, going, "Oh, what's going on? Everyone around me turned." It's only been the dominants who have been immune. So unless it was a plot hole, which it very well could have been.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, this game, needless to say, ultimately, again, this game is absolutely incredible. I love everything about it. My question to you... go ahead.
One last thing. I have one last thing.
Yeah.
That's for Illis. Because the thing that kept me going through this game, yes, the story in general was good. The combat felt amazing. The pacing, for the most part, was pretty good. The thing that really kept me going throughout the whole thing were aspects of the story. Because they always had that one next thing that would hook into you to go, what's going on?
Yeah.
What happened? What is this? So from the get-go, it was, who killed Joshua? Then it was, Clive killed Joshua as Ifrit. Why is Clive Ifrit? What is Ifrit? Then it became, okay, we're going after the crystals. What on earth is this being that ended up being Ultima?
Mm-hmm. How is Joshua alive?
How is Joshua still alive?
Yeah.
And it's every single time they dropped a truth bomb on you, they'd been like, oh, by the way, sprinkle some other stuff on you. That's where you go, what? Mm-hmm. The whole thing with Dion, that was so huge. All throughout the fight with Bahamut, Dion up until this moment had been a ally. And now you're fighting him tooth and nail?
Yeah.
There's one of the, and I think actually this is the moment that I don't actually want to spoil, because there's one of the biggest hanging questions while you're fighting this thing is, why is he attacking his people? Why is this guy who's literally the captain, like the general of the army, who every single one of the dragoons doesn't even answer to the king, they answer to him?
Yeah.
Why is he attacking his people?
Yeah.
And that is hanging over your head the entire fight with it. And it's that huge, massive set piece of a fight. Every single one of the set pieces had these wonderful what-if kind of moments going on behind them. And it made the fights feel that much more impactful, because it wasn't just heavy in the fact of, I'm fighting this giant thing. It's, this fight has repercussions.
I also wanted to... I want to point out that I thought this was funny, and you can attest to this. But at the very, very end, when Mid, she went over and hugged Clive, she hugged Joshua, and then she hugged Dion, and Dion was just like...
Oh yeah, it was super funny.
But yeah, it was a funny moment because
alert.
again, like, yeah, because like she...
Spoiler alert, Dion's gay.
Yeah, but even aside from that, it was just like, because I didn't even take that into account, even though that's what it was, but even I didn't even take that into account. It was one of the things where she knew Clive, so obviously she wanted to make sure he was safe. She hugged him. She got to know Joshua. She hugged him. And so this is a person that she's never talked to before. She just hugs him. And he's just like, wait, what?
And he's royalty. He's he's freaking heir to the throne of a now destroyed. Which, by the way, crazy moment when that entire continent just rose into the air. And there's a moment that I immediately just went, oh shoot. And in watching other people stream the game, nobody ever mentions it. So it raises up and it shows all these people running around like as their continent is lifting up. And then from afar, the continent gets about here, and you see this huge shockwave pulse out across the entire thing and about that quickly. And in that moment, I just went, all of those people are dead.
Yeah.
Yikes.
Yeah, it's really, I cannot talk so much about this game, man. Like, it's such a great game. But I do want to ask, and this one will more specifically be for Silence since you beat it. Do you think that, on what level do you think that this would win Game of the Year?
A rough year for it to win Game of the Year. It's going up against not only Diablo, Fires of Rubicon I don't think has any way of winning Game of the Year, even though it's going to be really good. It's going up against a top tier Zelda.
Yeah, it's Zelda, and it's gonna, and I get anticipated, but Starfield's
not winning Game of the Year.
You don't think so? A lot of people are really expecting that to hit.
It's gotta. The issue is the expectations are here. That's where the expectations were for something like Elden Ring, and Elden Ring blew them out of the water. That's where the expectations were for Tears of the Kingdom, and they blew them out of the water. Starfield, unfortunately, has the downside of having told everyone a lot about what the game is going to be. They've promised a lot. So had they said, this is the game we're working on, we're excited for you to see the features that we're adding, and then it launched with all these wonderful features, then it would be this, oh my gosh, they gave us all this great stuff. At this point, they've unfortunately set themselves up for, this is what we promised. If we get this, people are going to be like, yeah, that's what they told us we were going to get. So on top of all these other amazing features that they've promised, they're going to have to deliver on top of that for them to have it reach the hype level that something like Tears of the Kingdom did.
So they've essentially, I guess in layman's terms, they've already set themselves up to be No Man's Sky.
Yes.
Yeah.
There's so many things that have to go right for this to not crash and burn. There are even more things that have to go right for this to be an overwhelming success. If there's one or two core features that they've pitched that fall short, or even worse, aren't available at launch, it's going to be an absolute cluster. I do not see it winning Game of the Year, not because I don't think it'll be a good game, but because they've been actively talking about this and actively working on this for, 5-10 years now?
It's already been delayed like 4 times.
Yeah.
Right,
Well,
and so so the issue with that now then is the engine and all of their functions have been in development for all that time. So how many of these in-engine functions are going to be 5 years old, 10 years old, because that's when it was created?
if it's even that, because then at that point that means if they've had to redo some of those functions, well, now it's a rushed function, which may potentially downplay what the initial intent is for the game.
Yeah, look at Cyberpunk.
I was literally about to mention that.
Cyberpunk, now that they've been able to put out, countless patches and actually get it to the place where they want it to be, I will say it is a wonderful game. The storyline is well done. The cuts in and out of cutscenes are good. The combat is fun. The build crafting is good. But again, it's something that people were talking about and building up and building up and building up. And when you're expecting a game to be a 20, even if it's only a solid 10, people are massively disappointed.
I was gonna say because unfortunately, going back to our current wheelhouse, I think 16 could potentially be a contender for Game of the Year because of how low expectations were given because of 15. Because of
I would agree with that.
Because of
except
how
Zelda exists.
Right, but this is the reason why I say it's a contender. I'm not going to say
That's
it
fair.
may
That's fair.
outright be the winner, but I would definitely say it's a contender because of how 15 was delivered to be this overwhelming success. But we already know from 15, with it being initially versus 13, where it was supposed to be. Just like with Kingdom Hearts 3, we had, as much as I love the Kingdom Hearts series, I know 3 was a disappointment for a lot of people because of not only all of the delays, but then Disney feeling like, oh, well, they love this game because of us, having a lot more put into it than the others. Because I love my visiting of Disney worlds and that being the progression of my storytelling, but being inside of the Frozen universe for 2 hours with Let It Go in the background because of, you know, this being the main plot point and having Disney rides being
6-year-old, I think I just threw up in my mouth.
and being and Disney rides now being a functionality of having, you know, some hardcore fights. Like you guys were describing the Titan fight, and the only thing that I could literally think of was the disappointment of the Titan fight with Kingdom Hearts 3 they because they forced the Disney ride mechanic as the functionality of an attack method. You know, like if you know, it would have been on the same plane of having Sora run up and down the body, as we already know the kid can do. I think that, you know, those things would have been that fight could have been on a completely different level of aspect, but because Disney decided to get their hands in it and really throw their influence on it made it subpar, which is why when Remind came out, a lot of people were upset about that DLC because, yeah, that DLC answered the questions and gave us our, you know, quote unquote true ending as well as our final mix of the game. But at the same time, let's be honest, the ending that we got was subpar. And that was kind of like it gave me a dirty feeling like 13-2. You play through 13-2, you get this faux ending, you pay DLC for this actual ending, and you're just like, okay, you shafted me. And so I'm hoping
Well,
when
and
it
then
comes
on
to
top of
DLC,
that, it was a actual ending that
yeah.
clearly led you to know that there was going to be a third game.
So like with
Very, very slightly related. Have either of you two or both of you two seen the new Spider-Man Across our Multiverse movie?
Not the latest
I
one. No.
haven't yet, but I want to.
Okay. Never mind
But
then.
I do. I have seen things that have eluded the next one, and all
They
I can
make it
say is that
extremely clear that there's going to be a third one with some of the ways that some certain things aren't tied up. And while it made me excited for the third one, it made me very disappointed to have to walk out of the theater knowing I wasn't going to know how those ended.
Yeah,
which I can get.
yeah.
Because it's like you're already built up for certain things, and it's like, okay, thanks for letting me know that I'm going to have to wait for this new storyline. When clearly the storyline is there.
As incredible it was in the moment, I'm trying to, like, I do not want to spoil any of this. I'm not going to, I should say. I don't like how they did it. I'll just say it that way.
How they forced the third, like the inklings of the third movie.
How they did and didn't wrap up. If it was only a handful of things, but it was a lot of core things that were very, very.
Okay.
There were things that going into the movie or even halfway through the movie, you're like, I wonder how they're going to resolve this, and then they don't.
No.
I think so kind of going back on the topic here, I think that me personally, you guys already know that Final Fantasy 16 is my game of the year.
That's fair.
That is, I mean, and that is me prematurely speaking before Spider-Man 2 comes out, but I don't see Spider-Man 2 moving the needle past. I think it's going to be up there. I don't think it's going to move the needle past Final Fantasy 16 of what I experienced with that game a couple months back. But
I will say this: the experience during playing of my first playthrough, I would say there were very, very, very few moments while playing that game that I would not have said this is an absolute 10 out of 10. It's only in hindsight that I can look back and say there were some things that really fell short of what I would expect out of a top tier AAA 10 out of 10 game. I loved my time playing that game. I'm still going to go back and continue playing my New Game Plus because I enjoyed it, the combat that much. The pacing issues and some of the... If we were left more in more of a Dark Souls or Final Fantasy VII Remake placed to where we were more, well, what did this mean? What do you think this meant? You know, if given it a little more. But there were so many exposition dumps to where they're just like, let me tell you exactly what has been going on for the past millennia. Ready yourself for 45 minutes of cutscenes. You know, like in the moment, I'm like, oh yes, give me this information. This is wonderful. But then after the fact, there's like nothing to wonder about because our only real question is who's alive, who isn't,
and who Leviathan is, and like there's a couple other things out there.
Yeah, but like the Leviathan, that's not even really relevant to the story.
Well, if the speculation for, again, that's kind of why I was asking beforehand is what do you think is going to happen for DLC? Because I'm wondering if they're going to touch on that at all, or if that's even going to, like, what are they going to do with that information if they even do anything with it at all?
What I would want out of a DLC is Dion lived. Here's a story of him.
Hey, yeah, that'd be great. That'd be great. I think
Dion is such a not to sidetrack this again. Dion, his character, he's just like he's chivalrous. He cares for his people. He is so giving when it comes to Clive and Joshua. He's just presented as this just wonderful, like, think of the almost cliche thing of like a chivalrous knight, but then put like a righteous anger behind it, and that's what you had with Dion. It was such a great character.
Yeah,
okay, Steiner, but not as cartoony.
You're a
No. So we're talking chivalrous, not. I'm talking. You know, I will stand and die for my people.
Yeah, he's the hero, pretty much.
The hero.
Yeah.
He could have. If they would have shown his character and showed like some of his dialogue from the game in the trailers, I would have assumed he was the main character. He's that strong a character.
Okay.
Yeah, like his men respect his leadership on the battlefield for sure. Like there's a reason why he has why people follow him and prefer his wisdom over the king, his leadership over the king.
Like
so.
It's one of those like if we were all in the same room together, it's not like we know that's the king and he demands our presence. It's
he's of the people,
and you feel that presence.
Yeah, do you, like you're an anime watcher, right?
Oh yeah, definitely.
So you My Hero Academia.
Yeah,
he's essentially Deku. So, like, legitimately, even the dark side of the Deku that had happened in this latest arc, he even encumbers a little bit of that inside this game. Yeah, it is absolutely, incredible. I do think that on a dev perspective, because that's the majority of where the votes are going to go, I don't think that Final Fantasy 16 is going to win simply because of that. But, yeah, by golly, man, it is my game of the year, dude. It is such a fantastic... I think it will definitely be... I think it'll be in top 5. I think it's going to be Spider-Man 2.
Oh, personally, I think if it doesn't hit top 3, it's a travesty. The game was phenomenal, but it had some obvious flaws.
Yeah. So
the only reason, again, that I wouldn't say it's a shoo-in for my personal game of the year is I have a lot of games that are coming out this year that I am incredibly psyched for. Baldur's Gate 3 looks like it's an absolute masterpiece. And it's in 5e, which is my personal brand of Dungeons and Dragons. So, like, all these characters that I've been playing at tables for the last, 5 years or whatever else, I can take that character sheet, bring it over, create a character, boom, my character with all my same abilities and everything along those lines is now in my video game, and I get to watch it happen. And that's incredible for me. Now, do I think that's going to be game of the year for other people? Not necessarily.
Yeah.
But if it scratches even half of the itches that I think it's going to for me, absolutely, I'm going to be playing this for
dude,
years.
I don't know if you saw the Steam chart sales, but it's already, I think it's like number 6 or 7 right now, like on the Steam charts. The developers were telling the people that do like the testing for site capacity, they're like, hey, only expect 100,000 concurrent players. They got to 800,000 in the first week.
Yep.
Yeah, it was, and it was still rising. So, and in fact, because of how well it did on Steam, it cost PlayStation 5 pre-orders to skyrocket. So it's just like, this game, I think, is going to be something that's going to be very special when it hits PS5.
Yeah,
for
I think it was Diablo that the purchases off the bat were so high that just trying to get the licenses to process, the game was failing to load for like 80% of players for the first like 6 hours of gameplay.
Yeah.
And it was just due to the fact that Sony literally could not keep up with the license purchases. Sony and Xbox couldn't keep up with the license purchases, so that when the game that you purchased went to try to get online to view its license, the license hadn't processed yet, so it would come back and say, hey, you don't have a license to play this game.
Yeah, I had like
for like the first 6 hours.
A friend of mine actually, like, he I feel so sorry for him because he always seems to have like the worst luck of like a first purchase of the game. But he had that and he posted that on Facebook that his game was showing that it didn't have license. He's like, I literally just bought this and I put this in some, and this is what I get. Like, for that, like, that's wild.
My download didn't finish until about 3 or 4 hours later. Or no, I'm sorry. It was like 2 hours. It might have been shorter than that. Anyways, there was enough time that happened between my download finishing and when the game had actually come out that so many people had already ran into this issues that the second that I pulled my phone out and said, what does this error mean? And it was basically like 100,000 hits of people going, yeah, this is happening to everyone. And I went, oh, okay. So I turned my console or that game off and I went and played something else. And I was like, they'll fix it later.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because at that point I knew it wasn't on my end.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
So,
yeah. I think. Go ahead.
No. Well, I was gonna say I guess shimmy back into Final Fantasy. So you were talking about how Jill and Clive are your top fantasy couple at the moment.
Yes.
And
Easy.
So
Easy
top
now.
Final Fantasy.
Final Fantasy. Yeah.
Final Fantasy. So what actually makes me I guess because you were kind of also making the comparison with Cloud and Tifa.
Mm-hmm.
So what kind of makes you think it's going to happen in Rebirth because of the stuff Sephiroth said?
So all right. So here's the thing. Well, first and foremost, I like Cloud and Tifa. That's my favorite couple in Final Fantasy VII. The matchups, people always try to match up Aerith and Cloud, and then they match up Tifa and Cloud and Barrett and Cloud.
Here's the reason for that. Because we get to experience Cloud falling in love with Aerith.
Mm-hmm.
Cloud's relationship with Tifa existed beforehand.
Right.
So whereas I think the right quote-unquote choice for him is Tifa, I love Cloud and Aerith's relationship because we get to see it start and we get to see it blossom, and it's so organic.
I don't like it at all because Zach exists. Zach is out there. He's still alive.
No. I'll go first. Maybe in this world, maybe not.
Right.
Yeah, bro, I'm dead.
I'm not even saying that they should, but I'm saying as far as my favorite relationship, Like, my heart says Aerith and Cloud, but it's only because, once again, we get to see them meet. We get to see that meet cute, them forging those bonds from scratch and moving forward and fighting. So my heart did such fun things when in the remake that Tifa and Aerith meet each other in, like, basically in the sewer, and in the original they're like fighting over Cloud, but in the remake they like leave Cloud in the dirt and they're like, we're best buds, let's go. I was like, yes.
But it's also it's also very interesting too, because in that scene that you're talking about in the remake, you're actually making a choice there. You can either walk up the middle, you can walk and check on Aerith, you can walk and check on Tifa. So I obviously knew what that had meant because I had watched Maximilian Dude's preview of it beforehand,
right?
And he didn't specifically tell me about that, but he's just like, they did a very subtle way of giving you a choice. And I stopped the game. I was like, wait. And he looked at the devs, and they were just like, they're just geeking out that he's able to notice something like that. So so when I got to that point, I was like, okay, it's going to be Tifa all day, every day on everything. Just because, again, I like that relationship. But kind of going back to your question on there, illusBLive concerning...
And their relationship in Remake is wonderful. I will not lie. I think they made me care so much more about that relationship than I did in the original 7. Original 7, it was just like, hey, here's the girl that he should like. And you're like, okay, he likes her. Mm-hmm. But they play on it. They show him as coming back as somebody that really she doesn't recognize. And they have to get to know each other again, and it makes it really nice. Like, they're calling back to some old days, like, hey, remember when this happened, and things like that. Yeah. But really, they're showing them have to get to know each other once again. And I think everything was done very organically, and I just liked both.
Because they ended up like inside 7 remake. They were at the very beginning of the game. They're at the bar, they're drinking, and she's just like, I feel trapped. That was code for him to come and save her. He didn't pick up on that at that time period.
Right.
Fast forwarding to more of the middle of the game, after Aerith gets taken by the Shinra or by the Turks, like, depending on what decision you made beforehand, Tifa might be out there in the garden, or it might be Barrett, or it might be an imagination version of Aerith. When you go out there to go ahead and have that conversation, that dialogue with them, mine was Tifa, just because, again, it was Tifa, everything for me. Mine was Tifa, and that was a very emotional scene, and you see Cloud hug her, and hug her tight, to the point where she's like, Cloud, like, you're hurting me. Like, but so it shows a more of an emotional state, and you're just like, man, like, he does care for her. He might even love Tifa at this point, but it's not really fully. He cares for her, but it's not really explained if he loves her. So kind of going inside Rebirth, there's going to be doubt there, because Tifa, like, inside the trailer, Tifa's saying, like, what are you implying, that I'm not really who I am or whatever? So it's just like, so if this is not the same Tifa, because Sephiroth inside the trailer had implanted in Cloud's mind that he killed Tifa when she got slashed a long time ago at the first Nibelheim event. So it's just like, if that Tifa died, then who is this Tifa? Exactly. So it's messing with the whole Rebirth is going to be him messing with not only Cloud and the players, but also messing with you of what you remember from Final Fantasy Original.
Yeah, which I think is going to be a really, really interesting aspect, just because of everything that we're going to get the chance to revisit up to where, the game may potentially end. The fact that, I know that we're going to Cosmo Canyon.
Yes.
Now kind of has me, okay, are we going to Junon now? Do we still see Costa del Sol? Does this mean we're going to see Dyne? Does Dyne have to die? So, because now so much stuff is being changed. Because even with the remake, Biggs survived.
Well, yeah, Biggs survived, because right now it's implied. That's what I'm saying. No, Biggs survived.
So, like, we are solid, quote unquote. We are solid with Jesse's passing. Mm-hmm. And it's already assumed, because with how
her
the game
gloves are there.
So what?
I don't know if she's dead. Her gloves are there in the ending. They're there on the kitchen sink.
Yeah. So it's so all right. So here's my only thing with this. It does show that Biggs survived because he wakes up inside the bed. It shows that Jesse could potentially be alive, but I don't know if this is the same universe that they're in or is it Zach's universe. That's another thing to consider too. Is what you know what I mean? There's just so much to really dissect and think about at that point.
Well, yeah, but because I mean, at the same time, because the and what I really like is how well that they've incorporated everything amongst the universes together. Because even though I haven't had the chance to play Intergrade, when I saw Intergrade, I immediately went Dirge because of Weiss. I immediately went Dirge. I knew who that was. So the fact that when you do the initial playthrough and they do the Advent Children like absent glitchy, you know, like in Advent Children when whenever like they would like go to like talk about somebody or what, it's like it had like that really like dark glitchy,
oh, like a little like, interruption,
like absent of voice. When Aerith goes to mention, you know, like she's like, oh, you remind me of someone, and then she goes to say the name
Zach. Yeah, it blocks it,
and it's absent. With them crossing that barrier, especially with the ending of seeing Zach going in there with Cloud, it kind of makes you think. It's like, okay, what is actually like, what is the rebirth? Because now we have Cloud's survival with Zach. Because initially Zach gives him the sword. He's like, you continue my story. And then from that point on, it's okay, what did Cloud do for that absentee of 5 years? Because he's 16. He's 16 at that time. We have no idea what happens within that 5 years until we're with him again when he's on the train.
Yeah.
So it makes you think, okay, what happened? So now that we have Zach there with him, what happens in that 5 years?
I don't know, man. Yeah.
It's like
yeah.
What's that relationship? Are they still intertwined in a fashion that is odd? Because of the Mako poisoning. With that relationship, you know, did Zach just go into hiding? You know, it's just like, okay, I'm gonna have you do this, you continue the story, but I'm gonna go here. I'm gonna go back to Gaganga.
You haven't you don't have a PS5, so you haven't played Intergrade yet.
Yeah, I haven't. Yeah, okay. But I mean, these are just like, you know, like raised questions. It's just like,
So
you know,
when you get a PS5, get Intergrade.
Like I'm doing the Intergrade story like ASAP, Rocky, and then I'm going through 16, so then I can freaking like skyrocket into Rebirth. Like I am Final Fantasying like crazy once I get my PS5.
So no spoilers. You may just want to Google the stinger for Intergrade, because it has nothing to do with the story of Intergrade. So you would still get the entire experience, but there's a stinger that helps set up Rebirth.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's all I'm going to say on that. I'm not going
to. Okay. So as we're about to get ready to wrap up this stream out, we're going on 2.5 hours now, roughly. I do want to ask, how many hours did it take for you to beat your initial playthrough on the Silent?
My man, it is 9:51. We are 3 hours and 20 minutes in.
Yeah, 3 hours. Yep, you're right.
Math.
Yeah, no, my clock, my timer up here says 2:11, so obviously that's not right on OBS. So yeah.
Weird.
But yeah. How many hours are you into completing your first playthrough?
I don't have any idea of that.
Yeah, I checked mine. I was close to 90 hours when I beat the game.
I
So-
had multiple instances where I had left it on for extended periods of time, so I
Oh
don't
yeah,
have.
yeah, that's good, dude.
Yeah, yeah. So it was like, I think my final clock was like 95, but again, I don't know how much of that was true and how much wasn't.
Gotcha. Yeah, yeah. I was about to say, yeah. I mean, yeah, I did pretty much everything aside from, the monoliths that popped up that gives you the trials to do the.
Fun.
Yeah, I tried one of them and I was just like, this is going to be a time investment. I'll do this for like if I decide to do a Final Fantasy mode playthrough, New Game Plus.
I don't know if they get any harder or not. That's my only thing.
Yeah, I mean, and
I went back and did it on right before. Actually, it was after I went to New Game Plus. I found out that the monoliths were tied to one of the achievements, like one of the trophies. So I went back into my old save on like hard mode or whatever, and just went and did all the monoliths. And so it's funny, my New Game Plus gameplay doesn't have the monoliths done, but they don't really give you anything, so whatever.
Interesting. Yeah. Yeah, I was about to say, yeah, that was the only thing that I did not do. And then there's one thing that I regret, and that was inside this game you constantly get new swords and sometimes like little bracelets and stuff like that. That's better than what you have equipped to you. So there's a weapon, I can't remember what it wasn't Ragnarok. I don't think it was called Ragnarok, but there's a weapon that you get. It's part of the side quest that you end up playing through. And then they forge you a legendary weapon. And it's really good, but then eventually you get a better weapon. So I got into the habit of selling my other weapons that were like not as good. Right. Turns out that the best weapon in the game, you need that one weapon to forge into that weapon. So, and I sold it, and there's not a buyback feature.
You're getting rusty with your Final Fantasy stuff, man. You know that you hoard everything. You get that one elixir, you don't use that bad boy. You know what I'm saying? You get 4 mega potions throughout the entire game. You only use one. You don't use all 4. What's wrong with you, man?
Honestly, no. I mean, I've never actually ran into that issue. Everything I've ever wanted, like whether it's a special weapon or armor piece or whatever, even for like the last elixir, like I had it. Because you only get one last elixir through the whole game, and I used it against Balrog, and I don't regret it one bit. Like I needed it, but for that one, that's the only time that I had a legendary weapon that it got something that was better through, I think it was just like through normal missions or whatever. So I got something that was better, which made my legendary weapon no longer needed. And it wasn't like it was just like slightly better. It was like significantly better. So I was like, oh, all right, so I don't need this anymore. Sold it for some extra gil and everything like that in case I needed to buy more potions. Then I checked inside the blacksmith and saw that I can get this, but I need to have this weapon and this orb in order to do it. And I was like, oh, that sucks. No. Yeah. So that I guess you could say that would be my last con, is I wish that there was a buyback option. Because there is no once you sell something, it is gone into the void.
I mean, that's how it's most of the time, though.
I feel like there is a buyback option in most of those style of games, though.
No,
at least to a degree.
I think in the later ones there was probably a buyback, but I think also at the same time, when it's come to other ones, like 9 times out of 10, we've just been buying the weapon, so you can buy multiple, but there was never like a need to buy multiple. Generally.
And I
think in the newer ones, like, there is a buyback.
And I will say that again, after beating and completing Final Fantasy 16, I can't talk about it enough. It is such an incredible game that to the point to where I actually started more mainstreaming again, or mainlining again in Final Fantasy 14. So I'm actually right now I'm going through Shadowbringer, and I got to a very interesting part of Shadowbringer that, like, I put in a lot of hours on Sunday on Shadowbringer, and I was like about to call it a day, and I did call it a day, but it was one of those moments where something happened in Shadowbringer. I was like, no, do I have to stop playing? Like, I was like, do I have to stop right now? But like, I knew I had to stop just because I had other things I had to do, but that came at the worst time. It came at a good time, but it came at the worst time because I was wrapping it up, and then it hit me, and I was like, "Oh, well, I got to put in 6 more hours now." Like that's what it felt like. So, but
honestly, no. Hearing that the I don't know, that fills me with so much joy, just because like I know with how with Final Fantasy turning now more action based. I know like with a lot of the older
For this
games,
installment, at least. Yeah.
like so many people have felt it to be grueling, which I do have to say is really interesting for a lot of these same people to be all about Persona and Persona's turn based. I'm watching you, Persona lover, Final Fantasy haters. You make no sense to me. With all of the little extra talking things that you got to do with people and stuff.
Yeah, the
But
Persona,
I
the
see.
game that takes 100 hours to play through your first playthrough.
Legitimately 100 hours.
Like it's not even like, oh, I did everything. It's like, oh, I barely made it to the end.
I'm watching you. I see. But I definitely have to say that hearing that makes me like crazy excited to hear that joy, because like one of the first instances that I can remember experiencing that joy was playing Seven. Um, I was hard headed. Everyone that I know that has ever once left Midgar, when it's went to dealing with the Midgar Zolom, has gotten a chocobo and ran across. I have not. Like, ever. I have watched that snake go to the corner, and I have planned my route to find literally the quickest route to run that it does not have that much marsh, and book it like a librarian and watch that snake trail my hind and be on like pins and needles and stomach churning, hoping that I make it to the edge. And every single time, it's as if like Cloud's little digital foot leaves the marsh. That's when the snake hits. So like I know if I would have been a second too slow, I would have been fighting that thing.
Mm.
But to get to that instance of seeing the Midgar Zolom being like shish kebabbed by the tree, and then going into the Mithril mines and having a completely different like, you're in this new dungeon, before heading like you describing like that. Oh man, dang, I gotta quit, because I had been trying for like, I want to say I had been trying for a few days to run across that marsh, and it was not working. And one day, before I had to get on the bus, I did it. I made it, and I got inside of that cave, and I was like, I gotta catch the bus now.
Yeah. But yeah, no, I think it's something to look forward to. I already know that you're planning eventually on getting a PS5 and all the Final Fantasies that come with it. But for anyone that is listening right now or watching later on, I personally would say that Final Fantasy 16 should be a system seller. I mean, there's other games that's out there that I do believe would be a system seller as well. But if you guys were ever on the fence about Final Fantasy 16, I would pull the trigger on it and get it. It's a meaty game. It's worth it. It's worth it. Has some great story, great acting in there, just great romances. It's just such a beautiful game, and I'm very glad I lived long enough to experience it.
Got dark. Between Clive, Joshua, Jill, and Sid, like their voice actors are all just like top tier.
Mm-hmm.
They all did such an incredible job. I absolutely think they should have put more Jill into the game, but that speaks to her character. That speaks to her performance. I wanted to hear more from her. I wanted to learn more about her character. I wanted her to feel more fleshed out, not just like the love interest.
Agreed. All right, so any closing questions that you have there at illusBLive concerning Final Fantasy 16 and your expectations for it before we ended out the stream for the day?
I mean, if there were any questions that people wanted me to ask, y'all can ask them yourselves. I mean, I got my Final Fantasy bros with me, and the fact that we even had the chance to sit here and discuss this, I know like when Rebirth comes out and we get the chance to sit down and have this discussion again, it's going to be revitalizing to be able to add in that conversation when, I have had it and we all do it together. But I mean, the hearing you two gush over this
Good word for
makes
it.
me it makes me happy. It makes me happy because so many people were doubting, and the fact that so many people were doubting, and the fact that Square knew that they had to deliver because of what they had done with 15, and the fact that they killed it in the way that they did, to the soundtrack, to taking on the challenge of, hey, you know what, we're gonna go full action, to heck, even taking a gamble on the controversy of no black people, like the fact that there were so many meticulous things that they've seemed to kind of like twist and push in the right way. The timing of it, you know, we didn't get another 12-year span before the next one came out. Um, so I'm excited to get the chance to get into 16. If they do some DLC, I can't wait to get into that. I'm hoping we can get back to a point where we don't necessarily need that with the Final Fantasies, because I've been disappointed every time DLC's been needed with Final Fantasy.
Here's the
But
thing: it doesn't need it.
Yeah,
I want it though.
yeah. They specifically said inside the thing that they would consider doing Final Fantasy 16 DLC depending on how it was received. It's well received. it's pretty well received. So they're actually talking about
it was well received. Now they're complaining that it's not making them enough money.
so
But
so,
it-
so like, but
Well,
I know.
yeah, Square.
I
Yeah,
know.
that's all. Yeah, that's all because it made revenue, but it didn't make profit. But when you spend a lot of money inside of a AAA game, like what's it called, Forspoken, and it flops, there's not really much. You know what I mean? Like they invested a lot in profit inside Final Fantasy 16 and Rebirth. Those are expensive games. You're not gonna have a profit right off the bat. It's going to they're banking on that. I don't know why that was ever a story, to be honest with you, because they're doing it for the long term. I don't know why that story came out to be like, oh, well, they didn't make. Well, no, duh. You guys just did Valkyrie Elysium, which I haven't heard anything about. You have Forspoken that did not do well, and that was a very expensive game. That's not a cheap game either. So just I digress.
I mean, I'll get into Elysium because I did get that. I did buy that.
I am very interested. I played the demo on that. That was another very good demo.
Yeah. So like I've gotten it. I haven't had the chance to like dive into it, but I'll definitely give you like my 2 cents when I get into it.
And speaking of demos, Illis,
Yes.
grab the 16 demo.
He can't. He doesn't have PS5.
I mean, I can
That's
download
right. I
it.
forgot it wasn't on 4.
Yeah.
I got the PS app. So like I downloaded it on the PS app. I just I
You just
Like,
gotta
oh, yeah,
get
let
the
me tell you
console
what.
first. Yeah.
Let me boot it on up, and you can remote play onto my PlayStation.
There you go.
I was gonna say, actually, to be fair, I got a really good friend. Shouts out to him, Jake. We work together at Lowe's, and he's been like my other. So it's always great because we'll have these conversations, and then I have those same deep conversations with him. So like that's my other Final Fantasy head.
So now you get to use this as like ammunition in that conversation. You can be like, sprinkle it on the fire. Just be like, what do you think about this? And you can be like, oh my gosh.
Oh yeah, no, because he sent me a text like I want to say 2 days ago, and he was like, I'm almost done with 16. And then he's like, so when you coming over to play the demo? He's already been.
Dude, it's that kind of game. You want to talk about it with people. You want to share the, and so I've had Cam with me on this since day one. I've had my buddy from my Dark Souls server with it. I got a buddy that I actually played soccer with when I was like 8. That we connected over Dark Souls a few years later. But by a few years later, I mean when we were like 23, and we've kept in contact from there. And he texted me here and there. Did you get to this side quest? That person was being a piece of crap, And there's so much feeling. so much of the game is driven on the fact that these actions that the party is taking is in attempts to change not just the spiritual aspects of the world, but like the emotional and the ethical aspects. Those aspects of oppression, of racism, of people being less than, they are so prevalent in the world, almost to a point of uncomfortability at certain times. And it really just makes your actions, makes your goals feel that much more lofty, and you want the characters to succeed because you interact with these NPCs that are, okay, for one example, there was this NPC that he literally trained up a monster that he would tell bearers that his son was under attack.
Oh,
right. He would tell bears that his son was under attack, and he'd have the bears go fight the monster specifically so his son could watch the monster kill them because they thought it was fun.
yeah. Then you had the little girl. Well, I'm not gonna go inside that one too much, but there's a little girl, which you thought she was looking for a little dog. That's what you thought.
And she's like, my pet is missing.
Yeah, and then you find out what it really is. It's just like she is being raised by the wrong people.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was. There's some parts that was very disgusting, and again, you feel it too because some of these people are. You'll be introduced to some side characters that are literally just NPCs. You grow a fondness for them, and then they die. That's where like the Game of Thrones kind of comes in, and some of them are brutal deaths. Some of them are like, dude, like no, they. So, all that to say, Final Fantasy.
Sounds like Clan Ad. Jeez.
Yeah, Final Fantasy 16 is such a fantastic game. I recommend getting it. I don't mind. I wish I got the deluxe version. That's like they deserve more money. They did a great job on this game. So
What? You didn't get a deluxe version?
I got Oh, did I? Get the... No, I got the standard. I got the standard version. Yeah. So
What?
Yeah.
I looked into getting the deluxe version, and there wasn't really that. There was like some digital art that you could pick up, and I think it was the soundtrack. That was it.
Yeah.
Now, having played the game,
like we all know,
I would have
like
forked over the money for that soundtrack.
Yeah.
But it's a mini soundtrack. You know that is not like the
It's not.
7-disc. It's not the 7-disc, like fantabulosa that it is that we deserve to get, man. Like.
Here, hold up. I need to find something for you real quick. And if you will put this on the stream cam, I would love to listen to it real quick.
Okay. We're not going to DCMA, are we?
What?
DCMA, the copyright strikes on the record or whatever.
No.
Okay. But we already know that Silent's favorite character inside the game was Dion.
I don't even necessarily think he's my favorite. He was absolutely the best side character. Yeah.
Hey, that man is high regard. It's between him and Sid. Like those two.
Sid was. Yeah. There was no Biggs and Wedge, ironically, inside this game. There was no Biggs and Wedge.
That's right.
Yeah, but Sid definitely exists, and I love Sid.
All right. There you go, Cam.
All right, playing it now. Let me see if I can share it real quick. All right.
Put those headphones on, Ellis.
So share, and this will be. Yeah, we'll just do this. Bam, bam. Let me know when you got. Oh, wait.
Yep. Make sure the audio is.
Boom. Bam. Confirm. And then bam. Non-video. There we go. And let me know if you guys can hear this. Ironically, that's one of the. Never mind. I'm not gonna speak too much about that. Was this at the actual orchestra that they did a couple days ago? Yeah, this was at the orchestra. Yeah, right now what you're seeing right now there is the beginning of the game there, Illis.
It's just
Yeah.
Now I have to say, the beginning
Mm-hmm.
reminds me of Dungeon from Final Fantasy 1.
so many good callbacks in Final Fantasy 16 that there'll be this swooping thing. Oh my gosh, there's a scene. Actually, it's in the opening scenes of the game after it goes to the war area.
Mm-hmm.
Cam,
Yeah.
you'll see the armies rushing at each other, and in the background they're playing a minor augmented chord version of Prelude from Final Fantasy. So the da 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 da, it's down, and it's over the top of this ominous music, and you hear it, and you're like, oh, yes.
Yeah. It's just, again, we can't say it enough. Fantastic game. Make sure you pick it up. And yeah, definitely. I mean, it'll eventually come to PC, so I know that those PC players will be able to enjoy something great too as well. But as it stands,
Get
right
yourself
now,
a good fan, because oh my gosh, your PC's gonna melt.
yeah, either that or just get a PS5. I mean, it's rumored that the PS5 Pro might be happening at some point at the end of this month, next month.
To be fair, people who hadn't been keeping up their PS5s, some of their PS5s were melting with this game. So
Yeah, it's an expensive game.
Clive wasn't cooling down, man. He was setting off all the flames, bro.
He's bringing Ifrit in real life.
Dang, man, Clive, he was bringing the heat.
Yep. Ladies and gentlemen,
that's what the Leviathan is. It's a coolant tank.
It's a cool. That has been our Final Fantasy spoiler discussion. Of course, we were very curious of what you guys thought about it. If you loved it just as much as me and Silent did, or if you weren't too hot on it, whatever it is, make sure you guys leave a comment below, whether it's on Twitch, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, whatever. We appreciate you guys. We love you guys. Once again, I'm Malachi36, aka Flash. This on my right is, well, my left for the video, is illusBLive, and right below is none other than my boy, Silent. Again, to you guys, thank you guys for being on this stream with me. I know, again, that you haven't touched up on 16 yet, but I hope you have something to look forward to there, Illis. And Silent, you already knew the first day when I beat it how much I loved it. And I really, this game, this story, everything about it is just so special to me. And I know it's special for you, maybe even for the same reasons or different reasons. So I cannot wait to see what else that they're going to do with this universe. Even if they decide to make it an HBO series, I'll watch it again. I will definitely watch it again. Like, I will love that. So, but until next time, everybody, Control Alt
Complete.
Peace.